Yes.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to bring some love here today.
I know. I'm waiting to turn the music down. I'm waiting for you.
Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? Get out, best trained, best educated, best equipped, best prepared troops refuse. Why you got this thing to say that they would rather switch and fight?
Time. Freedom of death. Gotta fight the power that be. Fight the power.
Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Fight the power that be. Here we are. It is Friday. Time for another session. All politics are local. America's number one hip hop talk show. Get ready to introduce the great Madam Donna K. Williams to set you up for our first segment. The great Jonathan Alston is in the house. And of course, the greatest DJ in the universe, Rhino. We ride Rhino. We ride Rhino all the way through
Peace.
Twilight on every Friday. So, Madam Donna, what is stirring in the pot for this Friday night?
Do things. The first should be last, the last should be first. So we're going to start off with the roundup and just say, what's during the week. And I know what's on everybody's mind.
What's that?
And it could be a little of Ice Cube.
She says she knows what's on everybody's mind. I want to hear some of this.
Is it Ice Cube or is it who's our president? So
baby, I'm a hungry black man. Ice Cube ain't on my mind.
I think if you're thinking about Ice Cube, there's something wrong.
No. I think we're all settled with Ice Cube and Zaire. If it was, I know it's Ice Cube, but that's fine. But
you bring up Ice Cube. I like Ice Cube. Stop dragging Ice Cube. He tried to do
I'm a hungry, angry, lonely black man. I ain't thinking about no Ice Cube.
DJ, I'm telling you, I've been on Sirius Radio for 36, 48 hours, almost 72 hours now. And they were just talking about that everybody was fine. They loved the contract. And even, listen, Zaire, we watched the State of the Black World yesterday. And even the brother from and it was cool. We was all cool. We loved the contract. But then he came back and said, yo, y'all dragging me because I sat at the table and I put X amount of dollars into the Black community as a result of that sit down. Did that have to be said? That's all I'm asking.
I don't think anyone cares. Look, man, Ice Cube tried to do the right thing, but he is not an advocate, right? He got involved after the campaign actually started, which is the wrong time to jump into politics and not get dragged. He should have done that before the conventions. Any lobbying that you do before the conventions, get a lot more support, talk to a lot more people. Yes. Did he execute poorly? Absolutely. But I think people spend way too much time dragging Ice Cube as opposed to actual people who hurt our community, people who we might vote for who are in our community. So I think that we need to spend more time on like mass incarceration, problems with mass incarceration, problems for what we will actually get for our vote. All those questions are legit. I think if we spent more time talking about that and less time trying to drag someone who try to do the right thing just in the wrong way, I think we'd be a lot more productive. That's just me.
And I agree. All right. So that had to be said. So great idea. Great idea. Just poor execution is basically that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he deserved all those arrows. And I think that there's always going to be a bias against Black men no matter what we do. I think that there's some level of like they're going to find something, right? Like 80% of Black men voted for Hillary Clinton, 80% voted for Biden. Not enough, right? Landslide, not enough. Y'all, something must be wrong with Black men. I think that, it's not just the police who shoot us, right? Like, I think that we get shot by everybody. And I think that we have to take that into account in some of our criticisms, especially when we spend so much time, right? When it's just not backed up in the numbers. It's not like 50 Cent was ever a representative for our community. It's not like it's not like anybody really value Wayne's political commentary before yesterday. He's the one who made this comment about Emmett Till years ago that he had to back up and apologize for because we don't take him seriously. But why now, right? Well, we're not talking about Common. We're not talking about John Legend. We're not talking about really like any number, LeBron James. Like there are so many different people that you can have conversations about who are a lot more serious than that. But people love dragging Black men. Because we got to be patriarchs, we got to be oppressors, right? Even if the numbers don't fit. So I'm just like,
okay, so that's a good segue. And Principal Caffelli said,
"Amen,
amen." And so that's a good segue because the next conversation on last show or the previous show, we talked about the Biden campaign and them. The whole campaign towards Black women and not necessarily enough towards Black men. And I want to ask the question now because now and I sent you guys of the vote, the exit polls, and they're looking at the numbers of who voted and so on, who voted for who and how and things like that. So my question to you, is it possible that they put something out and saying that, the Biden campaign is campaigning towards Black women, African-American women, and they're not making any, doing the same thing with African-American men? And we talked about this. And it seems that as a result, in different, because there were quite a few African-American men that voted for the Republican ticket. And I want to ask, were there are people very successful in dividing us? Because I would be confident to say that our men already know that if women are at the table, that we're already advocating for everybody that's in our household, and we're probably advocating in our household. And actually, Ed Ollie talks about this, how the Black woman is used often and not even compensated at the level that she should be for this work that she does. So with that being said, isn't it already a notion that if we're at the table that we're advocating for everybody in our household? And were they successful at possibly dividing us?
I think that goes back to Charles Blow wrote a really good a really good article in the New York Times. But I think that when you're actually just looking at the numbers, did they divide our community? When 80% of Black men vote a particular way and 91% of Black women vote the same way, like understand 60% in any single category. Anybody who gets 60% of any demographic has gotten a landslide. Like, you're talking about dividing the community. Latinos voted 1/3 for Trump. Mexicans voted 1/3 for Trump. Like, Muslims voted 1/3 for Trump, right? Black men, 80%. Higher than any other demographic. Like, not even gay people voted a lot higher for Trump, right? I think Will had it like 40%, right? Like, voted for Trump in LGBT community. And I'm just like, why the dragging of black men, right? Like, is 80% not enough? You know, we do have
they
black
got 400
Republicans.
years of practice of dragging black men.
We do have black Republicans. And on top of all of that, we have a ticket that screwed over black men. We voted 80% for people who locked us up. Like, we voted 80% for Hillary Clinton, and she called us a super predator.
Hillary, the devil in the blue dress. Clinton, yes, he did.
But we don't have, black men have a problem voting for women. But last time, 2016, 82% voted for Hillary Clinton. Then we had, I think, 80% Hillary Clinton, and then 6% voted for Jill Stein. So even when we didn't vote for Hillary, we voted for the woman who's a third-party candidate. So last time, like, what, 86% of black men voted for the woman candidate, but we're patriarchal. We can't support women in leadership. Yet, it's higher than any other group of males.
We're jealous.
Any other group of males, right? And higher than any other group of women beside black women. But we don't get into that.
White women would split over Trump.
No, white women weren't split over Trump. White women voted for Trump more this time than last time, right? So I mean, like, so that's not even. We're not even talking about that. That
Jonathan,
white women aren't feminist.
And I want to continue.
That's what I want to talk about.
And I want to continue on our community, because I want us to talk about, is it just that we think different? We're not a monolithic people. You know, we think and we have different ideas of which results have different results. So I really want to talk about that. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, we are a very politically diverse community. We have conservatives. We have religious conservatives. We have our capitalists. We have our socialists. We have the gamut of political views inside of our community. Yet we vote 80% the same way. And 80%, if you were a dictator, you'd be like, I can't get 80%. You would know I was cheating when you got 80%. We give dictators numbers.
You take the 60 and you kill 20%.
Right. We've got dictator numbers going into the Democratic Party, but like, it's not enough. There must be something pathologically wrong with black men, because 18% of us, 15% of us vote another way. You know, he doubled the number of black women he got too, right? This time.
Okay.
We ain't talking about that.
Yeah,
but I don't think we should. I don't think it's important.
Okay, and they're
well,
I think we're already exceeding 2016 numbers in terms of the popular vote. The numbers are exceeding. So I want to move fast because we're through the roundup. And
Donna, can I add something? In Florida in 2018, in the Florida election, when you had Andrew Gillum running against the crack Trump dude, right? Like, racist, I love Trump, Florida governor, 20% of black women voted for him. There were no thought pieces. There were no, do black women have problems with black men? None of that. Why? Because it probably wasn't really relevant, because they still voted 80%. I don't, like, if you really want to get into it, you can get into it, but that's not, it's not something that's considered like a pathological problem. It is, the community is diverse. There are probably a lot of religious people. There was a charter school advocate who was breaking down the Florida vote, said maybe charter schools were an issue, right? Like, we can look at various issues, and if we want to do that, we should do that. But I think if we want to do that with black men, let's look at mass incarceration. Because if we look at actually where Trump went, and how did Trump try to get more black men, and how did he try to directly get black men to vote for him? He went for mass incarceration. And he said, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, prosecutor, right, who locked up some innocent people, who did some things, right, who had a mixed record on mass incarceration. He's like, look, I let people free. Look what I did as Trump. right? He said, First Step Act, that's what I did. I'll do more of it. Vote for me. I take it at the convention. Alice Johnson, Black woman who spoke about mass incarceration because she
And to be
had
clear,
released,
Alice Johnson is the one that came through.
I believe the First Step Act, right? It was
No, I'm trying to think who actually brought the attention of Alice Johnson. It's Kardashian, right? Is this?
I'm not
the young
sure.
lady?
I'm not
I think
sure
it's
about that,
okay.
but you might be
Okay,
right.
go
with
ahead.
that. But
Okay,
she spoke at the convention. She campaigned for Trump. Nobody accused her of like cooning for Trump, whatever, because she actually had a legitimate issue, right? I don't fault Alice Johnson for pushing for Trump or for voting for Trump or for campaigning for Trump or speaking at the RNC. I disagree with her. I wouldn't have done it. But it's not, but we can't act like she didn't have an issue, right? And an issue that's actually real serious in our community. You can't act like the way Trump was targeting Black men was not a legitimate issue. Now we can choose to do nothing about it, or what this Biden administration, what Biden Harris, what we should implore them to do is to make a statement to end mass incarceration.
Okay, now stop right there because I just want to, before we move to topic, I do, Josie, hey, Josie, had some comments. Josie's, I'm going to just read through them. Of course, Principal Caffelli is still saying preach, but Josie is saying back home of the silver, the professional class have followed this blueprint designed by white neoliberal. White women have voted Dems only twice in the past. But the last one, she said, Jonathan, I think Black men are also being swayed by economic argument. You have a response there?
I think some of them are. I think so. You have some Black capitalists, you have some Black Republicans, and some of them might put that, because there are natural Black Republicans. Obama changed the game because Obama got everybody to vote for him, right? But before that, there are like Robert Woodson or Johnson, Robert Woodson, I forget, but Black man, worked for the Heritage Foundation. He was actually Black, right? He just voted for Republican, worked with the Republicans, worked with the Heritage Foundation because he believed in Black economic self-empowerment. I don't think that's illegitimate. Black people need money. We talk about that with home ownership, business ownership, small business ownership. I think that that's not a bad thing. I think that when there were overtures by Kemp, Republican Buffalo Bills football player Jack Kemp was Republican from Buffalo, New York. He died now, but like back in the 90s, he was really big in working with the Nation of Islam, right? Working with the
He was a liberal Republican. They existed.
Right. But he was about economic empowerment, and that's how he tried to get Black voters, and that's legitimate, right? I think our community is diverse. I think the strategies have to be plentiful. I think that we have Black capitalists. I think they serve a purpose, right? I think we have Black socialists. I think they serve a purpose. I think we need to have that full dialogue. I think that it's healthy to have people in both parties. It's healthy so that every other group and every other issue, they try to get their issues to be bipartisan.
And I'm gonna get you. I need you to answer because I got two more things, and then I do want to. Josie's just making good points. And is there a reparations argument?
Oh, for
it's the reparation.
For Republicans, no. There's not a reparations argument for Republicans. If that's what you're talking about, right? Because Republicans would never be for that. They would be for that in a backdoor way. Like they would talk about businesses, and they would talk about education, and they would talk about giving capital, right? So if the way you're interpreting that is that, well, that's what George Bush actually was talking about. George Bush was like, there needs to be high levels of Black home ownership because that's the way to wealth, right? So you have Republicans who
and actually there, because under George Bush there was some good legislation passed. So yes, okay. So I'm go ahead. I'm gonna move you along.
Oh, no, for you.
Go ahead. Because we're down short, and I know we have a awesome show today. So with that, we're looking at the TV, and in 5 states we're waiting for, I believe, and 4 of them Biden are leading. So what do you think? This is since Tuesday. Everybody has been very, very, and just talking to people are the anxiety is very high, and the feedback anxiety is very high. So talk to me. How do we feel, going on, and what do you think? What are your hopes? I understand that Biden and Kamala is going to come out and speak tonight.
If you Biden by the rules, you're going to get you Joe Biden for president. That was happening. You all got careful because of that COVID stuff and took your time and voted, got it right. Count all the votes. Look like that man gonna come on through and put that other man in the garbage can of history. And I might be going back on south to Georgia and get me some black woman Southern comfort because I ain't got none up here.
Wow.
But before Zaid, the actor, but let me just say, before we even start, we have to give our props to Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams went back into Georgia, took all of that energy, went back.
Speaking of black women,
and just doing her thing. And let me just even to the picking of Senator Kamala Harris. The strategy, we know that she is from HBCU. We also know that she's from California. We also, she represents California. And we also know that she is a member of the sorority, AKA. And to the sororities and fraternities, I'm often seeing them do the work and not so much talking about it, but doing it. And then also, HBCUs, just hearing a different conversation, even them coming out again, doing the work, and young people, the excitement, just seeing this face is coming up as being second in command. And then Stacey Abrams, I'm telling you, she did a thing in Georgia the first time, but she went back and just did it again. So that's what I think.
I think that the current governor of Georgia, Kemp, I think he messed with the wrong one. I think he stole the election from the wrong one when he stole it from Stacey Abrams 2 years ago. I think that she's not finished. I think that we're going to see probably the most intense Senate race in the history of the United States Senate coming up in Georgia. There are 2 Senate seats, would give the Democrats the effective majority because they'd be at 50-50 with
so
Harris.
We're talking about midterms. So we're talking already about midterms.
No, we're talking about runoff. We're talking about the runoff election in Georgia that's going to happen in a few weeks, right? The runoff election in Georgia is going to happen in a few weeks, right? Like I've heard different. I'm not sure of the dates of that yet, but I know that's coming. That's coming really, really soon. And I think you're about to see money just poured into that on both directions. You're going to see volunteers on both directions. The Democrats have 2 stellar candidates. The Republicans had 2 candidates who made money off of COVID by having insider information, like they sold their stocks early or whatever, right? Like they got some griminess going on down there. And I think that we're about to see Stacey Abrams and Atlanta and the activists in Atlanta who are energized do their thing. I think that I think John Ossoff's one of the candidates. Warnock is another. Warnock is an amazing candidate. As in, like, he comes from the Black church tradition, but from the Black liberation theology, Black church tradition, in terms of he's someone who, like, understands to deal with poverty.
Pastor Ebenezer Baptist Church on the shoulders of Martin Luther King Jr.
Absolutely. Right. He's the same. He's the pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, and he takes it seriously. As in, he takes the Black theological tradition seriously. When the evangelicals are like, we support Trump. Right, the Black prophetic tradition, which is you deal with the poor, you deal with the sick, you deal with trying to actually transform society into a better place for every single person. And as a person who believes it to his core, and they're preaching that, working on that, organizing around that for years.
And Pastor Barbara's been doing the Poor People's Campaign around that whole message, as a matter of fact. So that's just going to bring up,
Come, beloved community. Come, beloved community.
Exactly. So we're going to have a real race in Georgia that is going to be a distinctly Georgia race where you have Ossoff, who is like young, up-and-coming, liberal, progressive, but has that I can get along with everybody kind of thing. Like, both of these people could potentially be superstars in the Senate, right?
And Jonathan, you were in Atlanta for a while, so you're not only talking about what you're reading, you're talking about possibly what you felt, correct?
Yes. Absolutely. And also just my recent familiarity with Warnock, right? Like he's been around apparently for a long time, doing a lot of really good stuff for a long time. And Ossoff just seems like he's a real good candidate, right? Young, charismatic, someone who, but I think both of them running together and trying to take back the Senate versus the Republican candidates who are established but kind of crooked. One is straight up, one is straight up, right. One is straight up Trump. Both have been indicted. Both have been
thieves.
Right. Both have been looked at as being as thieves, as taking advantage of the COVID crisis for their own personal gain. Like that is something they both are wearing in this. And so I think you're going to have very energy. I think there's going to be a lot of energy there. I think people all over the country are going to go in and work for that. And I don't think Trump's going to work for that for the Republican ticket because I think he's petty like that. I think that he lost.
And moving just quick, Jamie Harris in South Carolina. He raised a whole lot of money. He ran a great campaign, but he could not go against Lindsey Graham. So coming back up, what do you think? Do you think Jamie should stay at it? And when he comes back around the second time, what do you think about that South Carolina race with Jamie Harris?
Can I get in?
Yeah.
Two things. I want to build on Jonathan's point, but I want to say this. We are not going to be the only ones to try and blow those senatorial candidates up.
Right.
We have to understand Trump is on the throes of being defeated. There's no doubt about that. But 69 million people voted for him.
Yep.
That base is actively mobilized. They came out in as many numbers as they had, and they are still dangerous in that way.
Word.
That is the ugly face of white supremacy that is still in our face. Right. So there's no time for anybody to sit back on their laurels and think that this is over. No, he is over. But we should also say, let me get this in. He did his job. Trump was a wrecking ball for the advance of the right wing.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that he could have done to advance the right wing over a period of time, especially with the courts, he did it in double time.
Yep.
Even though we're rid of his behind, he did what he was set out to do. And so the task is on us within this next generation to undo something that he did within 4 years. We need to be real clear about that.
Yes.
But let me let's talk about that because. And was he the puppet and was Mitch McConnell the master? Because Mitch McConnell had all of that stuff sitting on his desk.
No, they're both dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I absolutely agree with you, Donna. Like as in, I think that.
I'm sorry, who was reelected? Who was reelected?
Right. I think Mitch McConnell really brought home that we have, to some extent, effectively have white minority rule in the United States. He used the Senate, which is a very undemocratic body, right? Very undemocratic body, to make sure that the white minority in the United States will have a disproportionate say and be able to stop the advance of the demographic change in the United States. I think that these Senate races become really important because I think that before anything else has to be done, I think Puerto Rico and DC have to become states. I think that if Puerto Rico and DC don't become states,
Puerto Rico is a colony. They may want to be free.
Right. Fair, but they just voted. They just voted to become a state.
Yes, they've been voting for statehood. Yes,
they just voted for statehood, and they did that in a concentrated effort to be in time for this. I think that what they had to deal with the hurricanes, where they had to deal with being second-class citizens because they are literally second-class citizens of the United States. Independence has never been popular in Puerto Rico. The majority of people have not wanted to be independent. It was always like a compromise between the two, but there really is a choice for them between being permanent second-class citizens and getting dealt with like they got dealt with in the hurricane, where they had paper towels thrown at them, or having 2 U.S. senators and having some level of political pull. I think the same thing.
Yeah, my Puerto Rican comrades gonna throw some paper towels at you.
They might, but they throw paper towels at the people who voted the way they did, right? Throw paper towel. I mean, don't come at me. I'm just saying that Puerto Rico has never fully voted for independence. They haven't, right? They voted just now, like I think it was maybe a few weeks ago. They voted for statehood. They voted for statehood. That is not uncommon.
That would be a funky show.
Well, look, DJ Rhino just said we need to think about all the things that presidents are used to carry out and how they're stacked, and the things that they do are stacked against us. And I'm gonna tell you, and listening and just fact finding, like 3 of the judges that sit on the Supreme Court now actively participated in the case that got Bush for Bush that got, when that Florida election went on, and that is Amy Barrett, the one that was just elected, Kavanaugh, and Roberts. All 3 of those attorneys at the time, Supreme Court justices now, actively worked on that case in some capacity, and now 3 of them sit there on the Supreme Court. That's something to think about. And I don't know that ever came up during the Senate hearings.
And I think that to your point, Donna, I think that the reason why I think that structurally that the United States Senate, those 2 seats are important, because I think that you have to get more states. I think that right now it's so undemocratic. You do have effectively the Senate, because the way Mitch McConnell has dealt with the Senate, it was supposed to be a collegial body. It's supposed to be a place where people get along, right? But it's built for that. It's built to get along and be reasonable. So for Mitch McConnell to lead the way he's been leading, it actually brought out how undemocratic it is and how unsustainable that is, right? Because I think that right now, all the Democrats have to be thinking, we need more states. We need states with Black and brown people in it, so that we have a chance at dealing with what is actually right now. What we didn't notice it before, Mitch McConnell made it impossible not to notice. We have, because of the way he used the Senate, we have what is effectively white minority rule, or at least the potential for it, on the verge of white minority rule inside of the Senate.
Yeah, and I think Jyoti, and we have our guests waiting in, so we have to move. But I will close with that. Stacking the court is not what's going to happen. Stacking the court is what has happened already. Yes. So it's so funny that what we all need to know is that everything that Trump said he was going to do, he did. And maybe it was so audacious what he was saying that he's like, he's crazy, he's just saying that. But he actually did it. And now they're talking, Joe Biden, you're going to stack the court. You're going to stack the court. No, people need to understand that stacking the court has happened. President Obama had all of those judges in place to be filled, and they sat on Mitch McConnell's desk until that 2016 election came through. And once Trump was sworn in, those judges just start being appointed left, right. And it was funny because Biden did not effectively respond to that question during the debate. He was like, what was Obama done? I appointed 200 judges. He said, sitting on McConnell's desk. And I think he said it at the second debate, but we need to understand the stacking has already been done. So we're going to move. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's why the Georgia races are so important, because without two wins in Georgia, you get the same thing again. You're not going to be able to get any judges approved. You're not going to be like the people on the Supreme Court are going to have to stay there. This becomes important because of the way that Mitch McConnell broke the Senate. This is why these are of heightened importance to Democrats, to like every Democrat in the entire country needs to be focused on Georgia. It is the most important thing that happens after this election. We got Trump out, but there's one more step if you want anything to get done.
So we're moving along because this is not only a political, all politics are local, but all politics are local and hip hop. And DJ Rhino has a guest coming up, and we want to bring him in, and it's Dougie F. And he reigns from Orange, New Jersey. So I'm a little proud, I'm just a little proud. So Dougie F, welcome to All Politics are Local, and I'm going to let Rhino take over. I just want to say that's my baby there. I helped raise him and all of those stuff. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Peace. What's good, bro?
How y'all doing?
What's up, man? How y'all doing? Doing good. What you been up to,
man? Of that. I'm back in LA, man, in the studio, writing music.
Okay.
I had to take a break real quick. I didn't want to let Donna down.
Sure.
If we see them trees, you definitely ain't in orange.
I'm watching I get a crib in Orange. I'm gonna plant them in Orange. Right?
Tell him, Doug. That's right on Central Place, right on the corner, Central and Wilson. Now Thomas Coates and Woody Plaza. Dougie, Rhino, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you. How'd you get into hip hop and what you're doing now?
And let the people know where you're from, because we know where you're from, but let the people know where you're from.
Yeah, man. I'm Dougie, man. I'm fresh out of Orange, New Jersey, 108 Projects. Well, Walter G.
Yeah.
And
Alexander
I'm sorry, I'm gonna
Projects.
stop. I'm not gonna interrupt you last time. Thank you for saying New Jersey because there's an orange out there where you are too.
Yeah, they got an Orange County. They got another Orange in Florida, but I'm from Orange, New Jersey. And man, like I got into music while I was in college, but I guess it was embedded in me just like being in my environment in the projects and like all my friends rapping or people making beats or us just listening to Hot 97 and people freestyle. I was always into like people putting words together. So when I got to college, I had a roommate that was a producer, and you know after I realized I wasn't going to the NBA, I started taking my classes more serious, specifically reading and writing literature and just writing and stuff like that. So me just waking up or falling asleep to instrumentals with no words on it, it was nothing else for me to do but to put my spin on what I think hip hop is and music is, and kind of tell my story through that.
True. Now, who are your influences? Who were the main ones that influenced you to do what
Man,
you
so
do?
I'm like I
Like
come
when you
from
say
like
you were in high school, like who were the ones that really like had your ear like that made you want to do it?
um so that made me want to do it was J. Cole. Like I was always into like how he put the stories together in the music. Drake was one of them because how he brought that melodic side of it, and then
Right.
Kanye, early Kanye. Now, I ain't talking about this 2020 Kanye, but
Pre-breakdown
early
Kanye.
Kanye,
Yeah.
early Kanye because of just the confidence and the charismatic you had to have with being an artist
Yeah.
and just pushing the envelope. So it stem from like several different people. It's not just one person that got me into music. Lil Wayne, just a bunch of artists. And then just our history in Jersey, period. We had like Queen Latifah, Lauryn Hill, um, Naughty by Nature, but it was a big generation gap. So I'm trying to do my part of bridging that gap.
Yeah, there was a time period where Jersey had a lot going on. Like you said, Redman, Naughty,
Yeah. They used to
Latifah,
be down there chilling
50, Outsiders,
at
Artifacts.
Checkers, right?
Like
They used to all
it
be posted up in Checkers
was
parking lot. I heard.
so many.
It's
So
breaking up.
Rhino's breaking up, and so why he's coming back in.
Yeah, it was
I told you earlier, Rhino, maybe go back in and come in, but I told you earlier, um, this time, whether you agree or not, artists really came to the table at the latter part of the election. Can you tell me how you felt about that, or even if from your perspective, how was the hip hop world um, talking about, Ice Cube's at the table, 50's at the table, Little Wayne's at the table? How was those combos going from your perspective?
Um, in my perspective, I'm an optimistic person, and
Hmm.
I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I also like to draw the line or let people know that as an artist or a person in the industry, you gotta live two lives almost, because you gotta realize the impact your words have, but you also gotta be a human at the same time.
Hmm.
So I'm not gonna fault anybody for choosing what side
Hmm.
of the fence they on, but you got to remember that what you say, your words are powerful, and like the people that it impacts. um I, I feel like I was disappointed in seeing how Lil Wayne went about. One moment he went from saying like I'm not a, it kind of was like that OJ moment, like I'm not black, I'm OJ. It was like when Wayne had his moment and he was like, I'm not affected by Black Lives Matter and my life matter, and he kind of really didn't have a stance on it. And now fast forward, you posing and siding with somebody that goes against everything that we fight for and stand for. So I was kind of disappointed in that, because as I said earlier, he is somebody that I was inspired by growing up. when it came to like making music and stuff like that. And him coming from a similar situation like me, I grew up in the projects, and I knew the struggles we had to face, daily. And he went through that too. So for him to get to this point and kind of side with somebody that's, not making it easier for us, it was definitely a letdown.
And
Ice
go
Ice
ahead. I'm sorry. Go
Cube.
ahead, baby.
I don't have like all the insight to really speak on the Ice Cube situation, but I think you told me earlier like he tried to speak to both parties and only one of them got back to him. So I feel like he's doing what he feel like he needs to do to get heard.
And let me just say, both parties got back to him. One was like, we can do it now, and the other one was like, we can't do it until after the election. So, and when 50 spoke, do y'all, and from your world again, is 50 somebody you take that you guys take seriously, or you always look for the games from 50 Cent? And then Rhino, you can pick it up after that question.
You was breaking up towards the end. I didn't hear what you
said. Say that one more time, Donna.
I would say from the perspective of an artist, when 50 says something, you'd be like, oh, 50 always playing, so do you look at it like that, or did you take his words seriously when he was speaking, like if he doesn't get elected, I'm leaving the country, or y'all was like, he always playing?
No, I mean you gotta remember
like
50. You gotta remember 50 came in on "Get Rich or Die Trying," right? That was his slogan. Get rich or die
But Rhino, like maybe take your picture out and just talk.
trying.
We see your corny t-shirt.
That's his thing. He's 50 follows the money. If you follow
Okay.
50, hold up. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, we get you.
You hear me now?
Yep.
I was just saying 50 follows the money. So we can't take 50 serious. He's always been a troll. He's been trolling people's careers, to this day. You know what I'm saying? That's 50's style, and that's part of his business. You know what I'm saying? That's part of his, how he gets his money, how he gets his following, and and keeps his following and builds his following. That's his whole thing. So we can't take 50 serious when it comes down to something as serious as politics and what he's doing, who he's supporting and why he's supporting them. You know what I mean? And the same thing with Wayne. Like we got to understand, like just the way 50 is about the money. We got to understand Wayne has pending cases right now, so he's trying to get pardoned and all of that. You know what I mean? So he has his own personal issues that he's trying to, get situated. So everybody's on their personal thing. We can't follow people and their personal, ideas and their personal agendas and what they're trying to get done. You know what I mean? We got to think about us wholly as a people, because we all get looked at as one, regardless of who you are. If you're black, you're gonna get looked at as one. You know what I'm saying? And we know what that one is, how they see us, and that's what it is. But 50 is he's not a big factor in the political conversation, really.
Okay. And John, did you want to say something, Doug? Did you have something?
Nah, that kind of cleared it up for me. I was gonna say, even though like we, I feel like not everybody is as like knowledgeable as most people, and it's a lot of people that do get tricked by 50 Cent trolling, and it's always an underlying truth in these trolls. So by 50 saying if Trump don't win, he's leaving the country, I feel like it's a little bit of seriousness in that, and it's a bunch of people that's going to feel like that too, because not only if Trump is inciting all of this stuff now as a president, I feel like once he's not president, what's really going stop him from making these radicals go even more crazy? You know what I'm saying?
And two things, and Rhino, when we were talking to Dougie early this week, or last week on Friday, the two things you said, Doug, when you was pulling up in the Uber and you thought, and then the reality hit in, and then I asked you, and I said, do you know Oh, you should have stayed, where you was and just seen what the dynamics was. He's like, no, I had this election day. I wanted to be home with my family. So that just hit
Right.
me back home. That just hit me in terms of just where, especially as a provider for your family and a man, that you wanted to be near your family should, things be challenging. So yeah. So
Yeah, that's it. I
and
feel
I, and
like
I,
with
and I would like you, and I just kind of, if you could share the story about you and the Lyft or the Uber car.
oh yeah, so while I was in Miami, I called the Uber, and I got downstairs. It was like a truck, and his whole back window was like a Trump 2020 sign. So me being where I'm from, thinking like it's almost like you chilling outside and the cop just pull over to talk to you, and then everybody looking at you like, yo, what you doing over there talking to the cop? So I got in the car and I'm thinking like, damn, when I get dropped off, everybody gonna see me getting out this Trump 2020 car, and I almost wanted to cancel it because one, I'm like, maybe this guy's a racist, maybe he's this, maybe he's that, but something in me, like I said, I'm an optimistic person. I was just like, man, let me just see, let me just get this person the benefit of the doubt and really try to connect with him. So I got in the car, and it was a white man. We in the car, we chatting, and I just asked him. I said start talking to him, and I realized he might not, he wasn't supporting Trump in a way like, oh, I can't stand minorities and racist and I'm this and I'm that, because that one, I don't think he would be driving Uber because we really it's all of us on the app. But I chose to stay in the car and talk to him, and I realized his point of view is like maybe he's somebody with more money that he's trying to protect and get discounts on Texas, and I think he's more so on that side of it. And at the end of the day, he was a normal human being that just this is way it works. I do what he got to do, but he's showing what he support and what he stand on. And I feel like everybody deserves to. It's freedom of speech at the end of the day. So
Yeah, it was economical at the end of the day.
exactly.
So
It was more
Rhino, did you? I
economical.
know DJ Rhino, you've been telling me that you've been playing BLM since sent you over Dougie F's information. Y'all want to talk about the inspiration of that, Rhino?
What's up with BLM? First off, I mean, before we even get into BLM, I wanna salute you on a couple of other songs, man. One of me and my people's favorites, man, is "It Ain't Safe."
Yeah.
That joint, "It Ain't Safe." Yeah, there's something about that one, man. I like the vibe of that one, and I saw the video. Where did you shoot the video for that?
So we shot the video all throughout Orange. It
Nice.
was a church on Main Street. We shot
I'm
at.
sorry, Orange County. Where'd you shoot that video at, sir?
Nah, you know what Orange I'm talking about. Orange, New Jersey. We shot it all throughout Orange, and we got some shots on Main Street. We got some shots on Central Ave, and we got some shots on Ivy Court. All throughout the project, the little Central Place, Oakville Place, Perot Street area, and yeah, that song was like my slogan is from the block to the world, because it's like I know where I'm from, but I also know where I'm headed. So I just wanted to put it out there, like where we from, it ain't safe. Even it's always like two lights to how we had to go through. I call it rose colored glasses. I
Word.
term that somebody else put me on, but it's like I grew up in that environment, but when you put on those rose colored glasses, you kind of see the good in everything. So
True.
me putting it into music is just my way of highlighting where I'm from, saying I'm proud of where I'm from.
True. Now, the first time I
Yeah,
got up on you was the song that you had with Pitbull.
yeah, that was a flex, man. Pitbull a
That was
legend.
the first one I heard, because that was the one that we were bumping on the radio a lot.
Yep,
I heard
yep.
that,
It
but
went
then
top
but
40.
yeah, but I mean, you got others. You got Under Control. You got Up Down. You got Touchdown. Calmest is another favorite of mine. I love Calmest,
Okay.
and
Lu-
Luxury
oh,
is
luxury,
another one.
yeah, luxury,
Yeah, Luxury.
yeah,
Yeah, but
yep,
yeah, but the
luxury and
BLM
BLM.
joint, explained it earlier, man. But what was it that really made you say, look, man, I got to write something about this. I got to record something about this. Like, I got to say something. You know what I mean? Like, what was it that pushed you to just be like, yo, I
Yeah.
got to speak on it?
like I stated earlier, like as a artist and just a human being, is like people do want to hear from you. They want to know where you stand, and they want to know what you support. And being quiet is not the way to go about it. But I'm not the type to go to a protest and grab the megaphone and just speak in front of a bunch of people. But I do got the obligation and the platform to really speak on what I stand, and I feel like I do that best throughout my music. So, me making BLM was my way of getting in front of a protest with my megaphone and just letting the people know, like, yo, man, we fought for this and we got to keep fighting, and we have gotten steps closer, but it's always something that take us a couple steps back. So that was my way of speaking on that. And luxury was just like more of a little relief side of it. It was more so about, that, because there was a lot of looting and stuff going on, and I just chose to put it in a different light, man, because like we were the have-nots for so long that we seen a opportunity to have something, and we went about it that way. So I put it in the perspective of a kid that was, he got this girl he want, and he can't afford to buy her the stuff she want, but we looting. So I'm gonna run in this store and grab this bag for this girl. I ain't doing it. I'm not selling it or nothing like that. I'm not gaining profit from it, but I am gonna, finally be able to get this girl something that I like, that she wants. You know what I'm saying? So that was my take on luxury. But yeah, BLM, man, that's a powerful record. I shot the video in LA. I went down to down to like Fairfax. It was a couple streets boarded up, and I just put this collage of images and videos on a projector and just really like got it done.
Now, I mean, now that joint, man. Like I say this almost every show that I do a mix. I have a mix called Resistance. It's called the Resistance, and it's basically hip hop from all coasts of America, from every era of hip hop, and it's music that speaks to the times, or like the kind of things of what's going on right now politically and socially.
Yeah.
And your song, bro, is part of that mix, man. I want you to know that
Thank
that
you. I
song is
appreciate
definitely
that.
part of that mix. Indeed.
Real quick, we're gonna get Doug. We're gonna get like 30 to 32 seconds of BLM, and then cut it off because we don't want you to get in trouble.
What
All
am I
right,
getting
go
in
ahead.
trouble for?
I mean, us get in trouble. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's what they call good trouble.
Unjust justice system. We're tired of empty promises with no progress and no change.
Becoming all colors, black, brown, tan, a variety. I'm tired of people trying me. Police always eyeing me. We all brothers. It ain't no menace to society. Ain't blocking out no post for notoriety. Try taking the.
I'm
What happened?
sorry. So y'all know where to go, but
Let it go. Let it
real quick,
go.
Rhino. I'm sorry, real quick. The second one, Mike, just put that up for another 30 seconds. So, because you talked about two, Rhino, put the second one up, Rhino, for 30 seconds. And
Like give us a whole new take on chopping it up.
and also you got Doug, you got Reg Miller's on the line. You want to give a shout out?
Reg was good, man. Reg was the OG. He really put us on. He gave us a lot of guidance through our high school. I ain't forget one of these. This little plucks to the forehead if you was acting up. Reg, what's up, man?
They're looking for it.
Mike,
They're
we
looking
don't
for
see it
it.
yet. Oh,
Oh, one last question while they're trying to search for it. One last question for you, bro. What made you go to LA?
Oh man, like I'm an artist. Like I said, my slogan is from the block to the world. I feel like I'm doing it. I have done, and I'm doing what I need to do for the city I'm from. And the only way we grow is to expand. So this is as far as I could get in the U.S. Um, and I made some links in between to really like put on for where I'm from. So, and LA, as far as the music scene, is where it's at. So everything I've been doing out here has been like fast forwarded if I was to be doing it from home. You know what I'm saying?
True. That's what's
Yeah.
up.
real quick.
That's a good perspective too.
I'm sorry, Rhino. Real quick. Go ahead. 30 seconds, Mike. That's the first one, Rhino.
This is
It
this
ain't
is it.
safe,
It ain't
right?
fake. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the point right there.
Yeah.
That right there.
Whole hood outside like it's 1999.
Oh, that's
All
all
the
Opal
junkies get
plates.
supplied, all the gangsters down the ride. Hella baby mama vibe, she might save me from my pride. We was out looking for trouble, it ain't safe, so stay inside. It ain't safe where we from, if you ain't where we from. It ain't safe where we from, if you ain't where we from. It ain't safe where we from, if you ain't where we from. It
So,
ain't safe where we from,
okay,
if
Mike.
you ain't.
So Doug, so when you see that, Dougie, so that's really something. That's you as an artist today talking to Dougie as a baby, or kind of
Yeah,
playing it
pretty
out.
much. Yeah. Just playing it out. That's my nephew, man. If you go back, I got my nephew in a bunch of my videos, and he looked just
Hmm.
like me and my brother. So I always try to,
Yeah, y'all all
if
got
I'm
their
doing
head.
something,
Yeah.
if I'm doing something where we reflecting, like I always want to, bringing my nephew. And you never know. It's never been like when I was growing up, we didn't have opportunities to, to influence us to want to act or to be in
Yeah.
film, in any capacity. So I just try to give him more of a spectrum for him to grow up and say, I want to do this and I want to do that. It's always been sports for us coming out the projects, so
Hmm.
I just want to give him a wider spectrum.
And Doug, Rhino's gonna have the last two questions, but when you come home, do you have young people that say, "Hey, I want to do this"? Are you mentoring anybody from Orange? How does Because I know you usually get to shoot a video when you're home, and you're very, and Rhino, I have to say, he's very very conscious about actually filming exactly where he grew up, and that always has a warm place in my heart. But tell me, are the people you see? Because if you see all of those are everybody probably from around the way.
Hmm.
But is there anybody that you're mentoring local that wants as asking for your mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, it might not be in that context, but every person I run into, um, that's got any questions, any they want any knowledge or just any experience on what I'm doing and how they could go about it. If we exchange numbers, they could call me at any time. They could text me. I always offer, the outlook, and my perspective on things because I realize that's what helped me mentally get out of that state that I was in. It's like if I didn't have the opportunity to go places and see places or have people to call and talk to about certain things, then I wouldn't have been in where I'm at now. So I always extend that to anybody that that I run into from back home, whether they artists, whether they they just tired of being stuck in Jersey or whatever it is. I'm like it's like an open hotline for real.
Okay, Rhino, I know as we so I thank you for stepping out of the studio, and I thank you, Rhino, for the connect. And you got and you that's what you do. You delve in, and I guess we'll start learning about each other. It's like y'all start researching and it just keep building on. Um, Rhino, we have the standard question. Can you do the standard question? Anything else that you want to ask, sir?
Yeah. Well, before I ask the standard question, I want to ask the last question. I want to say, I want to ask, what you got coming up, man? You got any music coming up? Any projects? Anything that
Yeah, so I got a
you know?
I dropped the Without a Smile project, and I have the second half. I'm trying to put out the top of the year, so I got a bunch of new visuals on the way. I got a bunch of new music on the way, and I've been doing some songwriting as well. So it's a bunch of projects that went behind the scene as well, working every day.
And before you ask the pivotal question, DJ Rhino, we want to congratulate you on the air. He is bringing in his first child into the world. He's going to be a
Yes,
daddy.
sir.
So congratulations. And Rhino, I'll let you take it from there because we know Rhino's daughter is like his mini me, and his daughter's DJ as well. So Rhino,
All
you
right.
want to talk to him about fatherhood, sir?
Say that again, because I was broken up. I think I got knocked out for a minute.
I said he's bringing his first baby into the world. He's getting ready to be a daddy. His wife is pregnant. So do you want to give
Wow,
me
do you know what it is? You know if it's a boy or girl?
Yeah, I'm having a boy.
Baby boy.
Yes,
Nice,
sir.
nice. And this is your first?
Yeah, this is my first kid. I got nieces and nephews. This is my
Blessings.
first kid. Yeah, I can't give
Blessings.
it back.
Blessings. One thing I'll tell you that my pops told me when I had my first, and my first was a boy too, is as he's growing up, always as you're dealing
Wait,
with
Ryan,
him,
you breaking up.
always
Wait, you breaking up. Wait, Ryan,
remember
we need to hit. Wait, Ryan.
yourself when you were their age.
All right, Ryan, repeat that because you broke up. And stand where you are with the hang in the air. DJ Rhino.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. He said I can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rhino. I can hear you, Rhino. I can hear you.
What did you say?
I can hear you.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
I was just gonna say
your
that.
words of wisdom.
Yeah, I was gonna say as
You
you're
must be prophesizing because
dealing with the age you were. You know what I'm saying? Like when they're 5, remember how you were when you were 5. When they're 15, remember how you were when you were 15. Like just always remember, how it was to be their age when you're dealing with them. That way, that connection makes more sense. You know what I'm saying? When you're just when you're dealing with them.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's a blessing,
man.
Congratulations on that, fam.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
And Rhino, what's the question? What's that question? You want me to answer?
All right. The main question we always ask every guest that comes on the show. We have politicians, we have activists, we have educators, we have entertainers, we have all. I want to ask you, who is your most favorite, or who you bumping today? As far as your favorite hip hop artist or group.
My favorite hip hop artist, this dude, he out of Jersey, Orange, New Jersey. His name Dougie F. I bump him every day, religiously. I promise you. I can't get his music out my head.
Yeah.
That young boy sound like the hip hop Thelonious Monk.
That's right.
Yes, sir, man. I love listening to my music, man. I like what I put out.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Keep that up, man. Don't ever stop.
Thank you, man. I appreciate y'all.
It was good. It was good meeting you, and I look forward to kicking it.
Yes, sir. I'll tap in with y'all when I'm back in Jersey.
And Dougie, and if there's anything that you want us to know, just text me and I'll tell Rhino and we'll get you in because we appreciate
have it on blast.
Yeah, so don't be a stranger, and and big up to people in Orange and let us know because there's a lot of information going out, and this is a good opportunity to just let people know what you want them to know. Okay.
All right, appreciate y'all, man. Y'all have a great night.
All right, thank you.
Good luck, son.
All right, thank you. Later.
And this voice is coming in. The man is here.
Come the judge. Here come the judge.
Process, tabulate, report out the mail ballots that they received often before election.
Hey, Mr. Raleigh, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. What's going on?
We got a president yet? You got a president yet? We hear all that in the background.
No, not that I know of. I mean, there's a lot of TVs on in here, on all kind of channels.
So what's Philly doing? I hear those whole cities are bringing up the rear.
Well, actually, they just increased Biden's count in Philadelphia or in Pennsylvania. It's now he got a 16,000 point lead.
Wow. They were saying that it would get up to close to 100,000. I wonder if it's going to get that high, and I wonder how it's going to deal with the military ballots and the provisional ballots, because I don't think they're nervous. I think they think that he's going to win. I think they're pretty clear that he's going to win, but there's just that little, like I'm saying, I'm always a little paranoid, man, because I'm like, in a horror movie, the monster, right? He always comes back one last time before you got to kill him, right? And no one's really shanked him yet. There was no headshot, right? There's no definitive like you dead, Donald Trump, you dead, right? Politically,
down.
Right. There's no because the monster gets up, you just think he's dead. Everyone thinks Donald Trump is gone. Politically, he's done. And I just expect him to get up with a knife and start running at people. I'll be like, wait, there he is. He's really alive. He's really alive.
Hey, Jonathan, I think you need to stop and start writing because this might be a good movie because they have it. You got
the Revenge of Donald Trump.
And you need to
I got the graphic on my page. I got Emmy Douglas's Trump the Devil on my page now.
And you need to sell it to the Wayans. Sell it to the Wayans brother because you know how they always do a parody on scary movies, so that'll be a good one. But Ed,
tell me, scary movie we live in.
Tell me about your Philly. Have you?
Douglas said he'll never die.
But Ed, before we wait for our next guest, can you tell me about? Have you been talking to people in Philly? Can you tell me how Philly was on election day? Do you expect Did you expect great things out of Philly? Had you heard what was going on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was telling some brothers, I lived in Philadelphia for a number of years, and trained at Joe Frazier's gym, and particularly, remember, the young brother who was murdered by the police officer down there, 2 weeks ago. So, Philly was really right to get rid of Donald Trump. They understand the level of racism that's going on. So I think that that's why Donald Trump was doing all he could to appeal to black male voters to try to get them not to go out and vote. And so I think that Philadelphia and the city of Pennsylvania is going to come through. But I think that one of the things that I think is not really being said enough. I mean, I'm hearing some black folks talk about it, but I'm not really hearing, these commentators. I'm not hearing black folk on TV. I'm hearing some of them, but it is black folk who delivered the White House, to Biden, and I think that has to be made clear. Even Latinos didn't come through for him, right? That in some sense they're saying, "Oh, it was black and brown people." No, it wasn't. It was really black people who came through for Biden and handed him the White House. And so I think that we've got to say that. We've got to make that clear.
I put a caveat on that, right? Like, and if Arizona comes to him and Nevada comes to him, that's because Latinos did their thing in those states. I think that depending on what state you're in, right? Like, because it had to be a state with black people or Latinos and to come behind him to get. So I think that when you're talking about Nevada, you are talking about Latinos because we're not out there in force. When you're talking about Arizona, him flipping to that is strictly because of Latinos as well. So if you're talking about certain states out west, I do think that you got to say that there was this kind of coalition that was there. But in terms of the numbers, you're right, because black men supported 80%, black women 91%. That's Latinos right. Generally was like 66, at most 66%. About a third usually went for Trump, and that's normal.
I just want to automate it. I want an automated thing that I can say. This is a disclaimer. Jonathan Austin is a debate coach, and he just jumps in when people are talking because that's a style. Go ahead.
My bad.
It's very effective.
But here's the thing, though, right? So I think that we've got to begin to talk about that, right? We've got to begin to because already you got
agenda on the table without apology, yes, sir.
Okay, so already you got people talking about what Biden is going to do for every other group of people his first 100 days, right? I'm hearing him say what he's going to do for the Dreamers in his first 100 days, but I haven't heard him say what he's going to do for black people in the first 100 days, right? Now, and I voted for him and Kamala. I'm just simply saying that all of these black folks who are around him, I think that we need to begin to say that in a very real way, that it was black people who saved Biden, It was black
And,
people who delivered Biden to the White House, right?
and it wasn't
I think
just
that we
delivered,
got to make that clear.
and it wasn't just this time. We're the reason why he got the nomination to begin with.
That's
Right?
right.
Like black people,
Yeah,
like he was on
that's
life
right.
support. He was dying. He was like
Yes,
Joe Biden.
yes.
There was no more. But
John,
the
John,
black people in South Carolina,
let me also share something with you, right? The level of self-hatred that we have for ourselves is palatable because in South Carolina, those black folks came out and saved Biden, but those same black folks didn't come out to save Jamie Harris, right? Think about that.
well,
They didn't.
different. That's
They
different,
didn't
Ed.
come out and-
No, I think that's different,
Just
Ed.
blew up the
I think
mic.
the Democrats
But why? Why? So
South
if you
Carolina,
look at the numbers, why aren't the numbers perfectly aligned with Biden and Jamie Harris?
because they gave Jamie Harris the nomination. Ed, I think your analysis is wrong, right? It wasn't self-hate at all. He got the nomination because of those voters. But you're talking of the difference between the nomination and the general. It's the same thing. Like South Carolina wasn't going to go for Biden. Why? Because the white people quite outnumber us. But you're talking about the Democratic Party in South Carolina. Those are very two different things. So I'm going to really push back on that. I think that the people of the black people in South Carolina did their thing for Jamie Harris. They did their thing for Biden. We're talking about the primaries versus the general election. So I push back on that self-hatred thing, my man, because they gave Jamie Harris had the nomination.
I think you operating a lot like the posters, right? Who all got it wrong this time around. I'm talking about. I got family who's in South Carolina, and I've talked to them, and hearing why they didn't go out in the same numbers. I'm talking about my own family didn't go out in the same numbers to vote for Jamie Harris that they all made sure they got to the polls to vote for Biden, right?
But, so in other words, they didn't vote.
Hold on a second, John. So as you began to push back, it's that's these posters. This is why they're talking about getting rid of the whole poster business altogether, because people are sitting back looking at these charts and they're trying to figure out how did they all get it wrong, right? And
South Carolina was never going to go for the Democrats.
Okay, John.
All right, but
I know that there are more Republicans in South Carolina. I'm clear on that, right? I'm simply saying that the black folk didn't go out and they didn't support Jamie Harrison in the same numbers that they supported Biden in the primary. That's all I'm saying.
But wait,
Okay,
we got to Congressman here. Let's ask Congressman.
And I'm saying that has a lot to do with self-hate, right?
I just disagree because I just think that you're comparing two different things.
I got it. But I'm telling you, I'm talking to family. I'm talking to people on the ground. But I see the congressman here, and of course, y'all know it's the Payne Report. We're in the 7 o'clock hour, and we want to welcome my brother, Congressman Donald Payne. And we also want to say congratulations to him on being reelected.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm just a fly on the wall. I'm sit back and watch this. This is, I like this kind of debate. Let me stay out of it. I'm Switzerland. I'm neutral. I'm Switzerland. I'm neutral. But you both make good points. I to a certain degree, Ed, I tend to side with John on this one. I don't know how much self-hate it is, as there are a lot of factors. Well, what did your family members say to you about that?
So I asked my sister, right? I said to her, she lives in Orangeburg, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked her,
Clyburn country.
Yeah. So I asked her, I said, I said, so, and this is my oldest sister. She's the matriarch of my family. She got the whole family out. They all went to vote in the primary. And I said, well, wait a minute. I said, I asked y'all, to make sure y'all go out and support Jamie Harris. And I told her why. I said, look, y'all know that, he's a protege of the congressman. I said, so y'all want to make sure y'all get out and support him. You know what they told me, Congressman? They forgot.
Wow.
They told me.
No.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I told y'all how important it was for him to win the Senate, right? It doesn't matter if we get the presidency, if we can't control the Senate, it's gonna be rough on Biden. But if he
you can forget it.
Get in there and take control of the Senate, he got a better chance of getting things done. So they told me they understood that. And I said, so did my nephew go? He also said he didn't go. I said, oh, wait a minute. I said, so I asked my brother, and my brother I talked to 3 times to tell him to go make sure he vote for Jamie Harrison. Didn't do it, man.
Wow.
And so I'm saying, if they didn't do it, I know that the majority of the people in the community, in the complex where my family lived, I know a lot of them didn't go out there and do it, right?
And you told them to.
Yes.
And do we know if did Harris have the endorsement of Clyburn?
He did. That's his
Are you
project.
kidding? Do fifth swim? Yeah, no. Jamie Harrison.
He was out there campaigning for him.
Jamie Harrison went back to South Carolina from Washington D.C. out of Clyburn's office. He was his chief of staff, and went back to South Carolina to head the Democratic Party, and gain seats in the South Carolina legislature for Democrats. After years of that not happening. So he's been instrumental in the rise of the Democratic Party in South Carolina. It's just unfortunate, man. I don't know what we're gonna have to do with our folks, man. I just, you would think that in watching this, they would see how much, people are fighting to keep us from voting. So you would think that, well, this must be important because they're breaking their backs. They're breaking their backs trying to keep us from voting. So, yeah, it must be important. And I don't know what to say, brother. I know you must have just been dejected when you heard that. Oh, I forgot.
Oh, I was,
I mean, at least say, well, I don't like the guy.
Yeah,
but I forgot. I mean, I don't know what to say, brother.
Yo, Congressman, I was upset, man, especially with my brother. You know what I mean? This is a guy I talked to. He told me, and my family lives in Orangeburg. He lives in Columbia, right? And he's a professional. And I'm saying Jamie's a professional. You graduated from South Carolina State, right? Right there in Orangeburg. Come on, man. And you gonna tell me you forgot?
Yeah. Oh. And Jamie would have been phenomenal in the Senate too. He is a
grand man.
Just bright intellectual that's been nurtured and shepherded by Clyburn, all the way through his career. Was a mother of a single parent, same deal, and really rose to great heights to become the chairman of the South Carolina Democratic Party. Now we know how South Carolina is. I mean, you can imagine what the South Carolina Democrats were for him to get that position,
right?
When everybody happy for him to have that on his side. So, that's just a real disappointment to hear that. I don't know if it's self-hatred, but we gotta take care of ourselves, man, first.
Right.
We got to take care of ourselves. Charity starts at home.
Right.
And if we can't identify people that we know look like they might have had the same type experiences that we've had in our lives, and that will maybe at least, I guess he kind of knows what it's like. And so maybe, he can kind of be the best person to be in there that could understand, what I've been through, and you never know to what degree this is that. But I know his story. His mother mopped floors for that boy to get where he is.
Right.
it's just really, 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 kind of sad to hear that. And but and what happens a lot too, and John, this, there's a lot of drop off from, everybody gets excited about the president, and they go in there and they click that, and then, maybe they do the rest. That's why, in Essex County, we tell them line A all the way, and have just made it a theme. Line A, everybody knows that. Yeah, I know line A all the way, and it's just it's almost like a mechanism,
right?
That they do it, and but yeah, you can look at the different positions on, like you if you go and look at the ballot, say in Essex County, you'll see a drop off from Biden to Booker to Payne. And the further you go down, it just people just don't go all the way across.
Right. I don't think that's self-hatred. I think there's a level of political education that has to be done in every state. I think Stacey Abrams, what she's doing in Georgia, is that type of political education.
Incredible.
I think she's motivating activists. I think that she's combined. She's done a lot to work with other people to have a mass movement, where it's just not Stacey Abrams, it's all these other organizations too that are really doing grassroots voter education and trying to build a tradition of voting and the importance of voting, so it's not just one off. I think Jamie Harrison has to go back and do the same thing.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work in, with that, as I reiterate, with that Democratic Party in South Carolina. I need to check and see, but he definitely added seats, in that legislature that is no reason to be Democrats, and he was able to move it forward. So, if you can't get a guy like that elected, God help us.
But I think sometimes it's not about the first time. I think that,
John, you can't look at the ballot and I tell you the guy's name, and all you do is mark the box for the president. Right?
They don't have a tradition, though. I mean, they
forget and you tell me you forgot all you voted for was the president, right? Him and Kamala, and you didn't vote for him. And I'm telling you, this was most of the people in my family. I'm talking about. I talked to at least 40 members of my family.
Well, it really is about two things. I think it's about political education and them feeling it.
I agree with that, John. I totally agree with that. I agree with what the congressman just said as well. Except that, listen, man. If listen, I look at the ballot and I'm clear. I've read the whole ballot. I realize that they're not politically astute as we are. I get that. But John, if you say, hey man, I want you to remember this guy's name, Jamie Harris. He's important in the state you in, and I'm telling you why. I got it. No problem.
You know what is actually really good right now? Mail-in ballots. Because Ed, what I would suggest you do for your family, and what I suggest as a voting tool, those people who are kind of shaky, make sure you stay on the phone with them until they actually send out for their ballots.
Well, I was going to say have a Zoom, do a Zoom, and Ed, you just take them. Okay, where it says Biden, see the little circle, fill it in all the way. Okay, now next, see, do you find Jamie Harrison? You might have to do that.
Yes,
Ed, be on a Zoom.
Right.
Yes.
I wish I had done it.
But you didn't know. But you didn't know you were going to have to do that because you talked to him. So
But next time, Ed. Next time, you're the organizer for your family. You got the ball, Ed.
Yeah, but now I don't have Jamie Harris. I don't.
Listen, my father. Look, my father always said, like, he was under no imagination that I was the sharpest knife in the drawer, and he would, the teacher would come back and say something about me, and he'd sit there and he goes, Yeah, that's about right. You know, he did. He wasn't them. Oh, my son, and you did this and you did that, and I did it. He would sit there and like, based on what the information he got, he like, yeah, he's probably capable of something stupid like that. And so, you know, I'm the same way with my kids. I know who they are, and you know, you come to me straight up with something they did, and I know that they're capable of that. You know, so now you know, and now you know you got to sit your family down and say, okay, open the ballot. Mm-hmm. This is the and because 40 votes, man.
Yeah.
Replicating that hundreds of times in South Carolina. Oh my God.
I mean, but that's what the soul to the polls about, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. Every one of them voted for Biden. Every one of them.
Right. Because you know why they did that? But you know why they did that? And they didn't vote for the one, right? The first thing, Ed, you've got to take responsibility. This is your fault. You know your family.
Jonathan,
you should have sat down with them on a Zoom call.
Jonathan, tell him you're talking from experience, Jonathan. Tell him when you actually got that ballot, you was like, wait, I got to focus. So, yeah, tell him. I mean,
honestly, I wish I had filled the ballot out with Donna, right? I wish I had done a Zoom call with Donna. I wouldn't have had to go down myself to the Board of Elections because I put the ballot in wrong. I put the ballot inside the envelope wrong because, you know, the barcode has to be showing. And I looked, I was like, and I sealed it. I was like, I sealed the outer envelope and the barcode is not showing. So I went down. What? Right.
John, don't feel bad because the councilwoman from Orange knows half of her town did that in the primary.
Fair, right? And so but only because we had the guy of the county clerk's office down here, and Donna was, and I talked to Donna, and he was. They were like, "Hey, the county clerk's office open on a Sunday, and they're going to be open till 2:00. Just go downtown." And they had it all set up, man. They had tents. It was I just need to walk up, no lines. I was like, look, I need an outside ballot. It was like, that's all you need. I got outside ballot for you. And everything worked out.
Yep. You know, that was a major problem, though, in the primary elections. Donna can tell you I dealt with the post office for Orange a great deal this spring. And that was one of the problems we saw early on. I don't know if it was the school board or the primary, but we realized that, and we contacted the county clerk to make sure that people weren't doing that. And we notified also the regional director of the post office that this was happening, because what was happening was it was put in backwards, and the post office people were reading it the way they normally read other mail, and it went in wrong. So they thought they were doing it. They were people were getting their ballots back in the mail.
No.
They were mailing them, and they would mail it back to the house based on them putting it in the envelope and the barcode wrong.
Wow. So
we discovered that.
So, yeah, it was really serious. Yeah. Yeah.
So thank Orange for straightening that out.
No, that was excellent, right? Like I think that we have to, in our community, voting is a community act. And I think that we need to have more overt education. I love souls to the polls. I like the entire concept of mail ballots because we can request ballots 45 days in advance. I found out from the show, right? Mm-hmm. We can, and it depends on where you live, but you can request these ballots a long time in advance, like close to a month in advance, sometimes more than that. And I think that you have to we need to, as a community, stop voting the day of. I think we need to we need to do this whole thing where the first day we can get them, we need to have them sent to our houses. And we need to do these mass Zoom calls where we're like, hey, let's work this through.
Ballot parties. Let's have ballot parties.
Yes.
And Congressman, to your point, and you talked about our clerk, Chris, and Chris, every time from the municipal election to the primary to the general, he really took all of those different concerns and improved, and it made a difference, because the first one was really, really challenging, and by the time we got to the general, it was so perfected. And listen, He told me September 23rd. I think the ballots went out. They were on it. The ballots were out for a pure month before they mailed, and people still waited. And I get it because we're creatures of habits, but I think after this year, the assessment, this vote by mail, people are going to do it more.
Right. And you know,
Yeah.
John, to your point, the thing is that you didn't realize that because you never needed an absentee ballot. What they did was take the process for absentee ballots and make it national and a mail ballot. So basically what you learn is what people know that do absentee ballots. And they just took that system and made it nationwide in every state because it was the only way they could figure with this pandemic, you know, how to do it. They just expanded absentee ballots is basically everybody got an absentee ballot. And it doesn't matter whether you wanted to use it or not.
And I think that when we're talking about this election being the election with the highest turnout in 2006, all of us, or since 1906 or something like that, I think a lot of us are assuming it's just because of Trump and how much we hated Trump or how much Trump was loved. I think that probably a factor in this, even beyond Trump, was because everybody who was registered got a ballot or could request a ballot, right? Like there were so many states that did that. There were so many states that sent out ballots to everyone. I think ballot access became easier. I think that we talked about it more.
Yeah, but nobody had to go anywhere to get it. Nobody had to go down to your polling place and vote. They came to your house. So I mean, you know, unless you're real lazy, you know, you didn't have to do anything.
Right.
Congressman, and we talked about Jamie Harris. Can you tell me this for the same that whole conversation we had around Jamie? We go down to Alabama and we see Senator Doug Adams and how he lost, and he was the incumbent. And this, I believe, the gentleman was a coach, athletic director in the colleges. What happened there? You know, do we have you? Anybody want to talk about that? What happened?
Well,
you know why? And he was actually doing some great things.
Yeah, same thing that happened to Jamie Harrison happened to him. It's just a red state, and they weren't going to tolerate having. I mean, if you remember, he barely made it last time, and you know, from the day that he got sworn in, you know, they had aimed their sights on taking him out. So we knew it was going to be difficult keeping him there in Alabama, and just for historical perspective, Doug Jones is the prosecutor that prosecuted the people that killed the 4 little black girls in the church. You know, back in Alabama days with the 4 girls that got bombed in the church.
Right.
He was the prosecutor. So he has you know, great historical reverence in the African American community. So and sorry to see him go.
But also, yeah, and just to be fair, remember he beat a child molester the last time, and this time like the last time Doug Jones beat
that's the thing. That's what it was. That's right.
Like,
that guy was just so bad that even people you know, couldn't take him. But the minute they had somebody that they were, you know.
Yeah, it was Tommy Tuberville. It was the Auburn coach. He was a hero. Like this dude's a hero in Alabama.
Oh yeah, Auburn. Yeah. So, you know, he never really had a chance.
Yes, Congressman, you see the question. People want to know: do we have a president yet? And if we have Biden, what kind of president do you think Biden will be?
I've been sitting here in this room like a hermit for the last 4 days. I didn't even go to bed Tuesday night. I was up, you know, the polls closed at 8 here, and you know, naturally across the country. And I never went to bed. I never went to bed till Wednesday night at 10:30, watching it. and I think we're going to have a president that we can work with, and I think Biden. The joke I was telling around D.C. was that I go back with him a ways, and I've always respected him and supported him. As a matter of fact, I was telling people, I said, every time I get ready to support Joe Biden for president, some black guy gets in the way. First Barack Obama, then Cory Booker. So, I'm glad I'm finally able to support him. So,
yeah, I mean, it looks like everyone's predicting.
Come on, that was a great joke. Every time I get ready to support Biden, some black guy got in the way.
Hey,
but
Congressman,
y'all are weak tonight. Y'all are tired tonight.
Y'all didn't laugh at one. You didn't even try to laugh. That's cool.
Congressman,
y'all failed to see the humor in that.
Hey, Congressman, I got to ask you this question though, because this is somebody asked Congressman Clyburn this question, and they said that who do you think should get one of the major cabinet positions, and he said your boy Cedric Richardson, man.
Yes. Cedric is destined to land somewhere. I mean, he's been right by the vice president's side. He's been one of his closest confidants during this whole thing. There's nobody between Cedric and the vice president. When Cedric talks, he's talking directly to the vice president. So there's no one in between them. So,
but Congressman, don't we have to think
he's going to land wherever he wants to land.
But don't we have to think strategically? So you take Cedric, then you have to replace Cedric. And right now, in terms of maintaining control and then trying to get control of the Senate, there are no guarantees.
Cedric's seat is a safe Democratic seat. I don't believe the governor gets to a point. I think it has to be an election if he steps out. I'll have to check on that. But some of those states, definitely for the Senate, the governor appoints. But for members of Congress, I don't know if that's the case. They can, it can be a special election. So
one more question, Congressman. So with the different the House of Representatives and the Senate, the different roles you play. So Congress or House of Representatives, you guys had no you had no part in the selection or the advice and consent part of the Supreme Court justice. But in the long haul, if this election were to play out and it had to go through the process, the decision will come to you guys, to Congress members?
Correct. It would if it was a tie, then we would step in, and the nominee has to get 26 votes, 26 states to become the president. So each state would have a vote, and we were hoping it didn't get to that, because right now the Republicans have the upper hand on us. We would at least try to bring it back to 25, and then I think it might be the speaker. I'm not sure, but we know that if it came out that way, then it would go to the House of Representatives, and each state would have a vote, and you need 26 to in order to be successful.
Right.
Well, Nancy just keeps saying she's ready. She's ready.
Yeah,
we're prepared.
Let me try to answer Zaid's question. I think I had started, but I think what we have in Joe Biden is someone that we can work with. He's demonstrated time and time to me that he has a certain compassion and empathy for people, all people, regardless of whether they look like us or not. He's just he just likes people and tries to put himself in their position and has empathy, sympathy, and compassion. And that's kind of what you need in a person that's in this position, because a lot of it is looking at people and their situations and trying to figure out what's the best way for them. And you know, Vice President Biden has always treated me as he's treated anyone else, and that's one of the things I respect for him. And this is before I was even elected. When I knew him, when my father was there, and got appointed to a commission one time in D.C. where the vice president was he was a senator at the time, but he was the head of the commission. And my father thought it was something that I could lend a voice to. This was way before I was even elected. And, I was very nervous, and, I'm sitting in this room with all these people, and he said, "Oh, Don Payne, oh man, your father and I," and just a a real down to earth kind of guy. He really is a beers and nuts kind of guy. At the end of the day, that's worked hard, and because of situations in his life that were traumatic, has a deep compassion and a care for people. With him losing his daughter and his wife that way early on, and committing himself to the people of Delaware and also to his children every night, says a lot about him. Anybody that's a father can respect that, but believe me, with my schedule, knowing what he was doing is absolutely amazing. That he he would make that journey every day. It's really incredible. It says a lot about a man's character, and I think that's what we're really replacing in the White House. We are going from a monster, just a narcissistic xenophobe, to a man that I think we can work with and can get some things done in this country.
I think one thing that's potentially very dangerous for Democrats, for Biden and Harris, is that if there is something, if there's not a tangible, concrete strategy very specifically tailored to Black people. I know, like, famously, and when Kamala was running for the president, she said, when she was asked directly, well, would you do anything specifically for Black people? She was like, basically, no, everything I would do would be good for Black people, but I would not do anything specific for Black people. You had Elizabeth Warren, on the other hand, saying you can't have colorblind policies, because if you have colorblind policies, they're never going to directly help Black people. I mean, because they never have. Right.
Well, now but you gotta understand, during the campaign, people are trying to garner support from people that don't necessarily want to support them. So I wouldn't expect anything different from Elizabeth Warren to say that, and I wouldn't expect anything different from Kamala Harris saying that. She's got to be the vice president for an entire country that we know half of them don't want her anyway. There's probably another half that did vote for her was just because they were stuck with her because she was on the second piece of the ticket. So, I think we're in good stead. We're in good stead.
But what I'm saying is that I think that
Cedric Richmond is in the room, and I have full faith and confidence in him. He is he's a brother from another mother. The guy has really, done great things and has really elevated himself to the epitome of politics and being involved in the campaign. I mean, just think a young brother from the streets of New Orleans is next to the vice president, and he's just like us, John.
But what I'm saying, I think that a lot of people, especially a lot of young people, a lot of Black people who Obama was Black, right? He worked on the South Side of Chicago, but there were a lot of people who look at the symbolism of having a Black person there, but don't want that anymore, right? Like, so when you're saying that, well, look at these people, I think a lot of people are going to hear that and say, no, we want something concrete. We don't care who's there. It could be a white woman like Elizabeth Warren. It could be a black woman. Like, that doesn't matter to people. It's like, black people put him in office. Right. And all I'm saying is that unless there are very black specific concrete things that he does, Democratic Party is going to be in trouble because
let me ask you something. So you're looking at me and I'm looking at you, and you think that I don't have the best interests of black people at heart?
No, you
and the other 55 members of the Congressional Black Caucus?
I think that when you're looking at masses of black people, they're not going to care about your skin color. I think a lot of people are like, it's there because just because someone looks like you, right? Like we know each other better, right? But for somebody who doesn't know you, right, personally, then they're going to be like, look, everybody who looks like you, they get something for themselves, they get something for their family. They don't necessarily get something for people unless we spell it out. Unless there are things that are going to be concrete, unless they're like, I think if Biden and Harris, if they're just going to be like, hey, look at people who look like you, I think that they're going to be in for a rude awakening 2 years from now, because I think that the only reason I think we came out to get rid of Trump, but I think that the biggest issue that I had getting people to come out was that they were directly saying, we've supported Democrats, we've not gotten anything back for it. And I think that there are going to be some very specific black-oriented things that have to go into our communities that are concrete, that might alienate some white people who are never going to vote for you, right? Like, because 60% of white people are never going to vote Democrat, like close to it, right? Like, and
but Jonathan, let me and Congressman, let me say this. Perhaps the issue is that the Democrats need to do a better story of telling what you're doing. Because like I had the opportunity to watch you while you were running for office. Now you were constantly working on legislation, putting issues out all the time, and still running and doing all of that. And I remember 2008, and that question came up with and we know President Obama came out. I know everybody didn't vote for me, but I'm the president of everybody. But I remember he had some very specific initiatives that he put forth. One was it may have been the Office of Urban Affairs or something similar, and the first conference was here in Newark at Rutgers. But I know the faith-based initiatives and the people that were at the table. But perhaps that did, because it's the policies and healthcare. So why that didn't translate, I'm putting healthcare out because I know in Chicago, half the people didn't have healthcare. You didn't say it like that because healthcare, but that was for black people. A lot of people, black people didn't have healthcare. Absolutely. But how do we, I think it's telling the story and going back into these town halls. And I remember,
Donna, he wouldn't have been able to get, what finally got passed as the Affordable Care Act was no way in hell what that president wanted. There was so much more he wanted to happen. But in this type Democratic government, you compromise till you get to a point. They took out what they wanted. We kept what some of we wanted, and nobody was happy. So it was a good bill. If you don't think that what that president ended up with was watered down from what he initially started with, and he can't say it's for black people. He can't say it's for black people, but it was. Who doesn't have health care in this country?
I think that
poor people, which are predominantly black.
But I think that there's going to be a disconnect that's generational. And it's the same thing we talked about before.
Then, John, you know what? Then that's unfortunate. These young people got to pick it up and get with it. I'm tired of hearing this. They got to pick it up and get with it. They're the future. We've been out here busting our behinds, and the only reason they're able to say and complain about the things they complain about is because people got their heads busted open on some bridge that they are tired of hearing about from the 60s.
I think that there are things that are being done in Congress, as Donna talked about. But I think that there are very specific things that need to go to communities that people need to know about.
Right.
Because I think that if you're saying this helps everyone, and you have a lot of Black people who aren't benefiting from the healthcare bill, right? Like,
So,
there were a lot of people
John,
who
let's
weren't
be more
covered.
specific. But you're talking about student loan, maybe. What do you tell me? Be specific, Jonathan. What are you
All right,
talking about?
so we have mass incarceration that's within our communities. We have massive amounts of poverty within our communities. We have different various educational issues within our communities, right? Like, we know that there are serious issues of poverty that help that infuse our community. We know mass incarceration affects lots of different people.
Do you know what the First Step Act is, John?
Yes, that's one that Trump signed.
Right, but oh my God.
And before that, it was Congressman Danny Davis of reentry.
It came out of the Congressional Black Caucus. He signed it because he saw an opportunity.
Right.
Hakeem Jeffries created that. And then Booker jumped on it from the Senate side. And it gained momentum and it passed. But that came out of meetings of the Congressional Black Caucus, the first step. And that's why we named it that. It's the first step in a long road. You can't turn a 20-ton tanker around in 25 feet. You first got to slow the thing down, stop it, and then start turning it in a huge. The problem is I think this instant gratification, Snapchat, Instagram, love me now, do me now, TikTok is the problem. They want it and they want it now and don't understand that there are processes, that there are fights, give and take. I mean, John, that's the thing that they need to. It's not like their social media, John.
I think
it's not like their social media.
So what I hear is, when the president looked at, like, whether it be Obama or Biden, they're like, look, for DACA, we're going to start that right again. We're gonna immediately do that, right? In the first 100 days, they're talking about various things for various constituencies that they're going to do for people who didn't vote for him in as large numbers as Black people.
Right.
I'm just saying that he needs to be real clear about what that is. And those, like, if you got something for each group in the first 100 days, and you're not talking specifically about Black people, I mean, like, I'm not talking about ending racism in a bill. I'm just saying that Biden is going to have to, like, do more than just have people in places. He's got to talk about some stuff that, like even if we know that he can't get anything passed without control of the Senate.
Right.
But if he's not saying, through executive order, here's the stuff that we're going to put in place to deal with mass incarceration from what I can do as a president. Here are private prisons. We're not going to use them anymore. Here's this. We're not going to do this anymore, right? Here are some things I'm going to be fighting for that are going to really deal with problems within predominantly African-American cities that help me, because the condition of those cities can't remain the same if I'm president.
Hey, John, let's let them win first, all right?
We're not just letting him win. We are carrying him over. We are putting him on our backs.
Let's let him win first, and then, believe me, I think if you don't think people are having those conversations with him and have been having those conversations all along, and those type of conversations weren't happening in South Carolina to have happened what happened for him in South Carolina, then I don't know what to tell you.
I just think
because there's no way what happened, and I was in the room. Full disclosure, I was in the room when Clyburn was telling him what he would do, what he wouldn't do. This is what he needed to do. This is what he needed to say, and this is how it was going to happen. Clyburn orchestrated the whole thing and told us how we were good. I was in there, and there were 2 or 3 other members of Congress in there, all Black. Okay, so if he didn't have an understanding of what if he didn't have understanding of what needed to happen coming out of that room, Jim Clyburn would not have stood up and did what he did and saved that campaign.
I
know that's not enough for you. I know it's not.
No. I hear you, right? I hear you, right? And the people, the players, you were there. You know what happened. right? You're like,
right.
look,
I shouldn't even
you're
be
like,
talking. We're family. I shouldn't even be telling you this much.
right. But and you're like, look, I know black people are going to be helped, right? You're like, we were there. I know it. I was there. I believe you.
We got to
Right?
keep them honest, though. We got to keep them honest.
But
they're
but I,
going to be what happens a lot of times too is trickle down. Even in my office, I'll tell something to happen, and 2-3 people down the staff chain, it don't happen the way I said it needed to happen. So we're definitely going to have people reminding and keeping people down below honest, because believe me, where he is, and then 2, 3, 4 levels down, somebody decides to kind of deviate, and he doesn't know about it. It's a problem. So,
absolutely, and I think people are going to rightly, right, be holding the Congressional Black Caucus there's going to be a lot of demand of and it's going to have to be more than I think people in positions is really important, because you need to have people in positions that care about the community, that are connected to the community, that do these things. But I think that on the outside, you could also read it as they have their positions that's got to translate into actual concrete gains, and those need to be front and center. I think that he can't be scared to alienate some of the white people who would never vote for him, as they prove.
They're not with him anyway. But
right,
he has said that he's going to be the president to all the people, regardless. And we'll have to see. And John, we at the Congressional Black Caucus ain't scared. All right, so you can come with that. We ain't scared. You're holding us accountable. We ain't scared.
Fair
you
enough.
Don't think I'm held? You don't think I'm held accountable? I remember my days at the city council with Zay. Shoot. So look, it ain't my first rodeo. We ain't scared.
You're like I can show him.
Right. He's come a long way with me, and it's because of the interaction I feel that we've had. But when he first showed up downtown, I could tell he didn't want to hear nothing from me. But it was all right. I just like I'm saying to you, you're saying, well, you have to show. I know what I'm gonna do. And if you're real, then down the road you'll have to say, you know what? Payne's all right. It's funny. A lot of times people will say, "Oh no, I ain't with that Payne." Oh no, man. Well, what's wrong with him? Nah, man. I just don't. Nah, man. Well, no. Tell me exactly what's wrong with him. Well, I don't know, but I just heard and people said, that this. Come on. What are we in? I tell people, I might not be worth shit. And excuse my language. Some people say you ain't ish. Payne, you ain't ish. And you're never gonna be. I said, you know what? You might be right. I might not be ish. And I may never be ish. But you don't know that right now. You do not know that right now. So all I'm saying to you is, Black Caucus, we know what we got to do. We know what we did for him. We busted our behinds for him.
Yeah.
I was in North Carolina, Wisconsin, Washington State. Man, shoot. Come on. Are you kidding me? And you don't think that we... All right.
Let me get a question before we wind the session up, because you got 2 COVID survivors in the room, right? You had the heroes held up. Where is that on the matter of priorities as you see it? We got a new chief. If somebody's court doesn't tie something up, we got a big cloud hanging over us that's just killing some of everybody.
Right. Well, if you I don't know if you saw Mr. Biden started today with talking about the pandemic. The existing vice president hasn't mentioned it since before the election. Joe Biden sat down with experts around the science and about the pandemic this morning. It is something that's paramount on his mind. He feels that the only way that we can get this country back on track is to defeat this menace. and he talks about it every single day. It's one of the top priorities on his list. So you know, I'm let me say that I'm fairly confident that we have a partner in the White House that we're going to be able to affect some change from. Um, John, black people are only 13% of this 13% of this country's population. So we have a greater and larger presence in the culture than we really exhibit in numbers, which is very interesting. Um, a lot of the Black Congressional Black Caucus members aren't just in Black districts, ladies and gentlemen. We represent over 70 million people across this country,
Let's
and
go to school.
and Maxine Waters district is a majority Black, but it ain't by much. Barbara Lee's is not majority Black, but not by much. Uh, Emmanuel Cleaver's is not minority majority. Johanna Hayes in Connecticut is not minority majority. Lauren Underwood in Illinois is not minority majority. So we have people stepping up in districts that it's not even majority Black people. So we represent a lot more people than just Black people. I mean, look, I've got the big four: Irvington, Orange, East Orange, and Newark. But I've also got Bloomfield. I've also got Glen Ridge. I've got some of the poorest people and some of the richest people in New Jersey in my district. And people have to understand that you have to balance. Although the majority is Black, there are still people under my tenure that I have to respond to.
And
I try to you try to balance it. So I said, why do I say that? I say that to say that I think that Joe Biden gives us the best chance. And look, anybody that didn't realize that that and I guess we do have to do a lot of education, that Barack Obama was between a rock and a hard place and managed the best he could, in those circumstances, and to get reelected. It wasn't the fluke was the first time. For him to get reelected said something. And you got to remember, we're 13% of the population. Now we always bring it home, and we keep reminding. We since Tuesday we've been reminding the Democratic Party of that every time it comes down and the chips are down, here comes Philadelphia, here comes Detroit to save the day, here comes
Black folks.
Right. So
Atlanta.
we've been making it right, and it's going to be the difference in Atlanta. So believe me, since Tuesday we're making it clear to them, and they know it. It's a matter now how we can realize that in capital for our communities. And like I said, John, we ain't scared.
Do you think that a lot of people have been a lot of people have been talking about whether it be and I'm just bringing this up, like Ice Cube contract on Black America. A lot of other serious politicians have been talking about Black unity in terms of policy.
Now you're getting ready really get them to start cursing. Go ahead.
Right, we're about to have Movement for Black Lives on, which deals with policy. You have the Congressional Black Caucus that deals with nothing but policy. And I know this is probably happening, right? But do you think that it may help in terms of the perception that Black people don't get anything from Democrats if there were public conventions where everyone got together and there was an actual Black agenda that Congress agreed with, Black activists agreed with, that there was something that put together that was an actual Black agenda that actually focused on that was concrete, that we could hold people accountable for, just like other interest groups.
Yeah, sure, you put it together, John.
But Congressman Payne, I got to answer that too, because at the annual legislative conference on the
Thank you,
different
Donna.
tracks, there is an actual track, and there has been a consistent, not like a brain trust that is hip hop and politics. Where Roland Martin, I can't, the hip hop, they do, and it's a very good panel, and different artists come in and they speak. And I remember probably the first one, there was a piece of legislation that was going forth that were looking particularly to like maybe one hit wonders and things like that. And they wanted to set something in place so that money was deposited. So when they were 18 and make this great hit, that and it's played all the way, and now they're 60 and they don't have maybe the best retirement plan, that money would have
Sure.
been, money from royalties would be set. But that was a policy that came
my
out of
father
the
was,
ALC. Go ahead,
my
I'm sorry.
father was chairman of the ALC at the time, and I remember sitting with it. It was Black Klan, and we brought Black Klan in, and I entertained them for lunch, and we sat down and talked, and then we brought them over to the Brain Trust and got into that whole topic. But yeah, it was Donald Payne Sr. that did that.
Was it Black Klan or X Klan?
X Klan. That's it.
And Funkadelic, yeah, Parliament, yeah.
X Klan.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and I don't know if anybody has had the opportunity, but ALC, and actually ALC is on YouTube, so you can go back and see these sessions for yourself. But I still think it's important.
Exactly.
To build it,
I mean, each member does a topic, across the gamut. So whatever you want to deal with. I mean, normally it was in-person sessions, and this one at 2:00 and that one at 3, and you go back and forth, and you see the talent that this country has, in all genres, all levels of business and art and culture and politics and lawyers, attorneys, everything. And mine is on small business. I'm not even on the small business committee anymore, which I started out on. But guess what? I've stayed true to my message about moving Black folks forward with wealth. And mine is not a glitzy topic. I'm up against Maxine Waters every year, and she's got Queen Latifah and P. Diddy and everybody, overall in that room is full. Mine used to be half full, but guess what? Because of my consistency and delivering on an issue that is important to small minority business owners and women, my thing is full now. Every single year, I got standing room only because I'm consistent to the message that I have for my people. And even though I'm not even on that committee anymore, that's what I do my forum on every year. And Donna can tell you, I've had the last 2 or 3 years have been incredible, right, Donna?
Yeah, and it is, and it's and it's generally policy and and then it becomes a funded mandate because everything is in the room. But particularly last year in the room, the owner of Essence Magazine was in there, who was the former owner. He supposed out majority of Shea Moisture, and that sister that was sitting in there that had all of those McDonald's. And I remember the year before, even before Uber was even big, and talking about that. But the policies that comes out of these forums and everything, and information in the room, and people explaining to you, like the young lady who owned the several McDonald's, is how she started doing it, or even Essence Magazine. So oftentimes, to be in those rooms and to affect policy and to meet with different grant funders and everything is everything. So,
well, I'll tell you one thing: we definitely felt the Black power coming from the congressman tonight.
Oh yeah, I'm on fire tonight. Let's go.
Let's go. He's like, look, we're gonna show and prove. Like we've been doing it for years. It's not something we started a long time.
I just came off
tonight.
I just hopped
off of dialysis. Shoot, man, I just hopped off dialysis too. They pulled that tube out of my chest. I ran up here. Shoot, I'm fired up, man.
Yeah, he's like, I ain't taking no mess from John tonight. You
know what I mean?
That's fair.
Hey,
listen, I'm sorry.
That's right. Hey, look.
I even got
Listen, 6, 7 years ago, Zay would not be smiling with me in the room.
Fair enough.
All
Fair
right,
enough.
I'm telling you, straight up. 8,
And
10
before
years ago, Zay would not be smiling with me in the room. And look at him
and,
now. Look at him now.
and before you leave, I just want to
You
say
got to have the
Jawan,
Donald Payne. Listen, you got to have the Donald Payne experience. You feel me?
Congressman
Hey,
Payne.
look.
You're
Hey,
like-
I ain't want to.
You're like the current activist.
Listen, I am not in I'm not in the great litany of the great orators of the city of Newark. You know, I'm no Raz Rock, I'm no Cory Booker, I'm no Sharp James, I'm not none of them. I'm just me. You come to my office, you come to my office, you come to my office,
Hey,
you come to
crying.
my
Look at
office, and you come to my office, Donna. What my constituent service is second to none in the country.
That's right.
In the country.
In the country.
Not Pelosi, not none of them. Donald Payne Jr.'s constituent service is second to none in the nation.
Wait,
you got a problem? You got a problem? Come see me.
Your constituents are shouting you out, Congressman Payne. Jawan McElroy said hello tonight, and I was on a call early, and I told him that you would be on the show tonight, and he said I was his babysitter. So Gerald Chambers sends a shout out as well.
Oh,
and
all
then
right.
And then I also wanted to say to the question about COVID is that McConnell, when he came back and said thank you, he said that a stimulus package should go out before the end of the year. So things are sounding different.
To your question, Zaid. Yeah, McConnell's kind of coming around now that the presidential thing is over. He knows he's got to do something, but he was holding out for the president and playing games, trying to make sure that Biden, couldn't grab on to any of that. So now that that's out the way, so he knows he's got to play nice with the new president. So and they know each other, and they know each other for 20 years. So listen, anytime Obama had problems with the Senate, he dispatched Biden over there, and they worked it out. He's got relationships with all of those guys in that room.
So do you think
that's going to bode well. Even though they are not in the majority, that's going to bode well for him. He has enough relationships with the people in power in that room that he will be able to get things through the Senate.
Okay.
But in the end, in Public Enemy's language, as they fear, Black Planet is coming anyway. 6 years, South Carolina be a little darker, a little sweeter,
Sure.
Kentucky, I'm going to say Kentucky because he's from
right.
Kentucky. And if he continues
they got scared about Texas.
That's right.
They were scared about Texas.
And about to lose Georgia. Yeah.
It's coming. We just got to make sure our Hispanic brothers and Latinos don't forget us as they, become upward mobile in this country, join the same path that other immigrants have joined, after they have made inroads in this country and just, shun us. I think it's part of this country's history that's what you need to do in order to be a true American, is to shun blacks. So
the great James Baldwin called that the price of the ticket.
Right.
All right.
And I think that one of the things that should be really clear in this election and the last one is that people who are on the Democratic side aren't going to get their way without Black people. They need to give something very specific to Black people. And our politicians can't be like, whether it be Kamala Harris was like, I'm not going to give anything directly to Black people. The white people who are down with the Democratic Party are okay with it. I think that the education that we've done, I think that there are some people, if people who don't like Black people are no longer ever going to vote Democrat. I think that they made that clear.
I don't know where they go, but I guess maybe they just sit out.
There were a lot of people who voted for Trump, right? Like there were a lot of white people who voted for Trump, and he's a maniac. Like I don't understand how middle of the road white people.
9 million people voted for the knucklehead.
5 million more than last time.
Requires white folk who are racist.
Well, why are you surprised, John?
Oh, I'm not surprised. I kind of predicted they would get 60%, and I was they flexed power because they got 5 million more votes than last time. So it wasn't like he had a limited base. Everything about Trump was like, oh, he just has a limited base. He's a limited base.
Well, yeah, but guess what?
Here, he doesn't.
Guess what? They registered people to vote too.
Yes, absolutely.
Quiet as it's kept.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So say you didn't know I had that. You didn't know I had that fight in me, huh? Oh man. Hey, don't let that both kind smile fool you, brother.
Got to send congressmen to dialysis more often.
I had to grow up there, baby. Believe it or not, I had to grow up in these streets too.
Hey, listen, Congressman, we want to say thank you, my brother, for coming through to do your show. We appreciate it, man.
Good
you know,
as always. We are always happy to. We are always honored to actually to have you here and to be able to have these dialogues. A lot of these dialogues, just I think more congressmen need to have dialogues like this on a more regular basis, because I like when you're like, hey, Zaya wouldn't have liked me 5 years ago. He wouldn't have been able to be silent like 6 years ago.
We just had to do that. It's all about accountability, right? And the thing is, and you just made a very important point, Jonathan, because that's something that I as an older activist now struggle with younger elected officials. You have to be about community engagement with your community, right? You can't just do this stuff by yourself just because you're cute or because you think you're doing the right thing. This is a people thing. This is the people thing. If you're trying to do it without your people, you're wrong, and you ain't gonna get but so far.
Right.
All right, Congressman, you got any final words, man?
Yeah, I gotta reach out to Larry Ham, man.
Larry is on the line listening to you.
Larry. The People's Organization for Progress endorsed my opponent, Larry. Oh no!
Right.
That was coming.
Word. Okay, so that would be a good conversation.
Oh no!
I was going to ask you, did you have something to talk about in December? So I guess that's your conversation that we'll be talking about.
It's all good. It's all good. It just means that I need to just understand what I need to do for people that I care about.
Have you talked to Kafani? Have you talked to Kafani?
No, I'm not talking to him.
Oh, sir.
I'm not talking to him.
He's one of our best young scholars. Talk to him.
No, you don't know how. Hey, Zay, you don't know how he did it, brother.
Okay.
You don't know how he did it, and it was foul. So, if he, everybody has the right to do it. Look, I'm not entitled to the seat. I have to earn the seat. But people that you have supported and you think, hey, look, he did what he had to do.
Okay. And so I think that is probably part of that theme. We definitely have to have that conversation in December, because you brought it up. I actually forgot.
The numbers reflected the will of the people.
I hear you. Because I
think the congressman just dropped the mic. Y'all.
He did. He was like, "Hey, look, he tried. He failed. I'm reflected the will of the people. It happened." And
Next.
Right.
The congressman dropped the mic. He's feeling good about himself right now.
As he should.
No. It's look.
But he also said. But
it's not really like that. It's what it is. It's that there's a way to do things, and I'm not an unreasonable or an unapproachable person, and the way it kind of happened just left a sour taste in my mouth for all of the opportunities that I had to support him in every endeavor that he's done. And to turn around and see that, hey, like I guess he felt that there needed to be a change in the district. So, that's his prerogative. Everyone's prerogative.
But I like what you said at the end, or really when you brought it up, when you were like, "I need to talk to Larry and see what happened." Right.
Right.
And I think that's really the heart of everything.
No, let me tell you, I do that with everyone. People that were didn't support me in the primary, I've already reached out to them to talk and see what it is, where I am, what I need to do. I'm going to be talking to the people that ran against me in the primary, and I'll see Califani around, but I'm not going to, I mean, I'm not going to, well, when I see him, I'll talk to him, but there are a couple groups in Montclair and other progressives that had a problem. I've met with all of them already.
Fair.
So I reach out to my constituents. I don't hide from them. I need to know what I need to do better.
I think you already said he ain't scared.
Right.
I ain't scared.
Right. And so thank you so much.
Okay. Yes.
We should have some serious energy coming off of this projected win.
Yes.
Because everybody had a hand in that. And we need to really take stock of what we had to do and what we're up against to stay the hand of a real dangerous person at a dangerous time.
Right.
We got work to do still. We got to stay out there, stay mobilized, and turn the tide on what he's got going on in the court and what's left of those jokers in the Senate and whatnot. But this was big, and it had to be done, and we had to stick together to do it.
Yes.
And honestly, I think it's big for this district because Congressman Payne, you made it very clear that you actually personally know Biden. Like you worked with him before, and it's not like he's a stranger. You're in that circle, right? You're in that circle of people. You're in the room. So I think that's something that potentially is incredible for our district.
Absolutely. And believe me, I intend to do the most I can for the 10th District of New Jersey with that respect.
And so thank you so much, Congressman. We hope that you are, because we have some people all in the room. We're actually going to have a conversation that hopefully you are listening to in on whatever, because it's going to be a fun conversation with Movement for Black Lives. We have
organizing policy.
Right. We have Pamela Chamba in with Forward, one of Zuckerberg's advocacy organizations, and we have Dr. Kelly Harris on for this next segment, and we're all going to be talking about what comes next and what is forward. So, so thank you so much as always, right? Because these conversations are invaluable because ultimately we all want what is best for our cities, our best for Black people, best for everyone who we serve within our districts or, in the country as a whole. And we're coming off something that's very historic that you personally had a lot to do with.
Well, I did my part, and I'm just honored that I'm in the position to watch it from this close a proximity and report back to the district every single month. John, you need to piss me off more.
I'm told I have that effect, right? Like you're not. Ed tells me that all the time. He's like, look, I think Donna told me earlier. She was like, yeah, he has that debate style where he just interrupts people. So I think I might have that effect on people. So I will try to be more like that. Right.
We got to get you back in the classroom, man.
He was calling us, telling us to be on time.
Idle hands, the work of the devil.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, this was great. This was great.
Yes. So thank you.
Right.
So thank you so much. As always.
All right.
Thank you, sir. And again, congratulations.
All right, y'all take care.
Yes, congratulations. This is all politics are local. America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. We are getting ready to go into our next segment. We have with us, Dr. Kelly Harris, professor at Seton Hall University. We have Pamela Chamba. She is an activist who works with Forward, immigrant rights organization. That's one of Mark Zuckerberg's advocacy organizations. And we also have Monifa Bandele, who is representing a few groups, but the one that I know from debate is Movement for Black Lives. I just want to start off saying that I really appreciate very much your organization, the organization that you work with, Movement for Black Lives, which is what I gather is a series of a lot of different organizations that come up with various policy considerations. And just throwing this in there, I'm a debate coach. I'm a high school debate coach, so I do a lot of geek stuff with my students, and my students
He is a legendary high school debate coach, Monifa. Don't let him play you like that. He's setting you up.
No, but I'm just saying that, like, your organization has helped our students a lot because it's given us an avenue by which people are advocating policies that are good for Black people, right? Because a lot of people are like, well, the federal government won't work. Federal government can never work. We can never work with government. We would never work with government. And then we're like, but what do you say to the activists who are doing it every day because they're trying to marginally make it better at some level for Black people? So thank you. I just wanted to throw that in there to say that, like, I'm a fan of the work that you do.
But John, she pronounces her last name Bandelli, brother.
Bandelli. My apology.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We want to definitely get the Queen's name right, brother.
Absolutely.
And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have a new organization, a new president, or probably going to have a new president. And we wanted to talk about what happens from here. And we wanted to put together people who could help us understand what are some of the expectations, what are some of the demands that are going to be made. What are some of your thoughts about what's going to happen in the next 2 years?
Anyone jump in?
Anyone can jump in.
Oh, okay. So Movement for Black Lives, as you talked about, is really an ecosystem of 150 Black-led organizations from all over the country. And so this summer, when we put out the call to the streets for Juneteenth and mobilized millions of people in all 50 states, we had policy demand, right? The policy demand was under the banner of defund the police. But as you stated, John, it's really a part of a larger policy platform that we put together coming out of the Ferguson uprisings that is grounded in Invest, Divest. And it talks about all of the things, all of the policies that we need to make our communities safe, to make our communities healthy, and to make our communities whole. While at the same time, we have to pull resources out of all of the systems that kill our communities, make us unsafe, and also separate us. So we're talking about policing, we're talking about incarceration, we're talking about ICE, and all of those things. So defund the police, which emerged as a demand, is still there, and how that translates coming into the election. Our motto was that we're going to fight Trump and organize Biden, right? So throughout our movement, Biden was not everybody's candidate. Black folks fell all along the spectrum, but we knew we were going to have to organize him once he won in order to advance our policy platform. So things haven't changed for us. The tactics have shifted and will continue to shift depending on what turns up in the Senate, what happens on the ground. But what you're seeing right now is that in about 24 cities, there are serious budget fights to pull money out of policing and into communities. And we believe that that's just going to continue and bubble up to the federal level. We do have a federal bill that is our policy. It's called the Breathe Act. And, I can get into that some more.
That goes into the question that I was going to ask you, because when I hear about defund the police, and a lot of the conversations around that are that it's a local issue because you want to defund the police locally, as in, like, you want actual, not defund as in taking away, like not have police, but as in just have a different strategy where you're using social service organizations, a lot of things that build up the community. But it seemed like a local push. You're saying that it's actually a federal push, and there's federal legislation that you'd want passed as well. And what is that? And can you talk briefly about that before we move on?
A lot of the money, and not just money, materials, military equipment that local police forces have come through these huge grant programs that come out of the federal government. And so what we're saying is that we also need a parallel track on the federal level, which is turning off the spigot of money that goes to programs like COPS that goes to Burn Jag, which is a grants program that gives money to build jails and prisons and to outfit police departments with equipment, a lot of which they don't need, and to redirect that money into grant programs that actually incentivize cities and states to decarcerate, to shrink prison populations, to shrink the bandwidth of what police are responding to. Police should have no business in a mental health crisis. Every state in the country, every city in the country should have a care line, right? This has to be funded, where a family, whether it's the family of Walter Wallace, the family of Daniel Prude, or right here in New York City, the family of Muhammad Ba, when they're calling because they have a loved one having an emotional health crisis, they get a health care unit. You know, they get someone who can come and assist them. So really to shrink the purview of policing as we know it. So the Breathe Act kind of looks at where all the money is coming from at the top. And then the local organizers are fighting these budget fights on the ground. And those two things have synergy so that there's a tension. There's a tension from the community saying, we want to refund our communities. And then there's a tension on the federal level saying, we'll incentivize you to actually fund the things that the folks on the ground are demanding.
And has anyone sponsored the Breathe Act yet? Has a congressperson sponsored the Breathe Act?
So we have two champions. The bill hasn't dropped yet. It will drop in hopefully in the first 100 days of a new administration. But our champions right now, you know, drum roll please, Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib are our two champions in the House. We also have strong commitments from some incoming representatives, like the amazing Cori Bush that we're really excited about. And then from my home state, Jamal Bowman, he's so hyped about the Breathe Act that he can barely take it. I don't know if y'all saw his tweet with the Wu-Tang symbol that says, bring the ruckus, Bowman. So he's really excited to be a champion on Breathe.
Okay.
We got to get them on, Jonathan.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Get them on. They're going to turn up on the 117th Congress.
Yes, it seems like they absolutely will. It seems like they absolutely will. I want to bring in some other people and come back to have a robust conversation about what we're doing in terms of what are some of your thoughts about what's going on with Biden? What are some of the things they're going to be asked for? Pamela, you work with Forward, and I know that you work with both Republicans and you work with Democrats. You talk to everybody. So what's going on?
Do it.
You're like, somebody's got to do it, right? And so what are some of the issues that you're pushing, dealing with, and what are some of the expectations that come from this new presidency?
Well, first, thanks all for having me here. I know it's been a while, but I'm glad to be back. Love Newark as always. Forward.us is a bipartisan organization, and we actually work with criminal justice and immigration. I work on the immigration side, and something that we've been fighting since day one of Trump launching as a candidate back in 2015 was for immigration reform. And I think this has been very clear as we see the results leaning towards the Biden win and easy path to 270, that a lot of people have been supporting immigration for the last couple of years. And that is why the Trump administration in the last couple of months of their campaign have distanced themselves away from this topic. In the first 100 days of a Biden administration, I think similar to what many of us have been experiencing under the COVID-19 crisis, not only do we need an economic reform package, but we need to make sure that immigrants are counted as part of that. We have about 20,000 DACA recipients that are part of the essential workforce, that were first responders when the pandemic hit us. And we have 100,000 of more family members, friends that you know, maybe your delivery person, that really helps you during your quarantine service, make sure that you don't have to go out. So we need to make sure that in the first 100 days, immigration is addressed. It's been years for myself as a DACA recipient, waiting litigation after litigation. Finally, the Supreme Court in June said very clearly that the Trump administration was putting an illegal end to DACA. So we won that case. And we won that case also in the uprising heat of Black Lives Matter and the movement for Black Lives, because the American people know that, well, the votes out there indicate that about 60 million Trump supporters are still voting, there are more of us that are fighting for a more progressive, inclusive, and fair United States.
Even though not it seems not by much, like we're talking about thousands within particular states. You said something that I thought was interesting. You said in the last weeks or months of the Trump campaign, he didn't go for build a wall. He didn't go for the anti-immigrant. Did I hear you correct? Like he didn't go for the anti-immigrant sentiments.
He's been distancing himself away from his hardcore immigration rhetoric because that hasn't been working. 3/4 of the American voters actually support Dreamers and a pathway to citizenship. Even in an exit poll that was released today by Public Opinion Strategies, we saw that, and I want to make sure I get the numbers right, but there was a 67 to 6% margin on throughout different states where many voters chose to vote for Biden over Trump because of how Trump's been acting on immigration. So immigration has been one of the reasons, because I'm sure there are many for many of us, why this Trump administration has been harming our country.
Now, thank you. And the question I want to bring in Dr. Harris to the conversation. Dr. Kelly Harris from Seton Hall University. We have him on frequently just to break down things for us and what they mean overall, like historically within the realm of Black people in the United States, and historically what this means. What are your thoughts on Trump leaving, Biden coming in? What are some of the things that you're thinking right now, especially given the way in which Biden got elected, really off of like Black people reviving his campaign in city after city, whether it's Atlanta or Philadelphia or Milwaukee, just coming through, lifting them on the backs and just putting them over?
Well, first, thank you all for having me again. It's good to see y'all. So we've been here before. So I'm not too excited about it. I think for me, what's more important, in September of this year, this was the 50th anniversary of the Black Panthers pushing and sponsoring a Revolutionary People's Convention. And I think that's something that we need to revisit. I don't think that we're going to find the type of change in this country that we really think.
Call for a national united front against fascism.
Correct. And I think that in order to really get to where we need to get, I'm of the belief that we need another people's convention. I think that we need a new constitutional convention to represent all the interests of the people here. If we're really going to grapple with fundamental change and serious change, I think that for us as Black people, we need to really go back and dig into our deep well of activists and organizations who really have been saying things for years that we just keep coming back around to the same ideas. When we think about universal health care, a basic living income, a standard income for everybody, prison reform, or justice reform, I should say, and so on and so on. We go back to the Gary Convention in 1972. We've seen these progressive ideas out there in 1972. We see them in 76. We see them in all the Black Power conferences in the 1960s. So we've had the solutions for quite some time. But what's happened is that our elected officials have limits. They are not as progressive as people would like them to be. As a matter of fact, I saw Jim Clyburn made a statement about being too progressive and how that could hurt and how that hurt Democratic candidates during this. And one of the reasons why we may have lost the House, or Democrats may have lost the House, not lost the House, but lost seats in the House and didn't get as many seats as they thought they could in the Senate because the agenda was too progressive. So I think that we need to really understand the fundamental nature of this country. I think we need to understand the limits of politics in this country. And I think that we really need to really push for something that's really transformative and revolutionary. And that's going to take coalition building with other groups. But for me, I think we really need to go back and take a look at the Revolutionary People's Convention and the National Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana in 1972.
Yeah, and I wanted to make a correction. I was referring to the national call in '69. You're referring to the call. It was September '70 in Philadelphia, and the Panthers went through hell trying to pull that together
They
too.
did. They did.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Bandelli, and I think I get that right? All right.
Yes,
And
yes.
so the question I have for you, like directly on that, is like the movement for Black Lives has been meeting for years. You've been pushing various policy changes in various venues. Dr. Kelly talked about previous conventions and need for future conventions. Is this what the movement for Black Lives is already doing?
Yes, that's why I loved it. One of the things that we had this year was actually a National Black Political Convention. So going into 2020, we plan to have, tens of thousands of Black people in Detroit. It was going to be a convention that would have occurred shortly after the DNC, where we were going to ratify our Black agenda. So COVID hit, and of course, we knew it was not wise to gather by the tens of thousands. And so we actually had a virtual convention back in August, which was still hugely attended. We had like maybe 300,000 people tuned in. Would you say?
Black August.
Yeah, we were there.
Yes,
we were there
during Black August. Who tuned in from all over the country. In fact, Black folks tuned in from all over the world, which was really powerful. And we had people who were at the Gary, Indiana convention present and open up this convention in August. So it was just really moving. We talked at that time about a lot of the political prisoner cases that we've been working on for decades. So that tradition of coming together, of convening, of bringing our folks together from multiple segments to pull together a joint agenda is powerful and an important strategy. And yes, we should continue to do that throughout. And that was also one of the launching pads of the Breathe Act. Breathe isn't just about policing and the criminal legal system. It has the reparations bill contained within it. HR 40 is within the Breathe Act. It's an omnibus bill where we're like, what's your key policy piece? What's your key policy piece? We're going to bring that in so that every time we go to the Hill, we make sure that we're moving everyone's organizing campaign along with us. So if you're doing decarceration, if you're doing drug policy reform, you will also at the same time push the reparations bill. So Breathe is pulling all those pieces together.
Mm-hmm, right on.
And just as,
Jonathan, can I just ask one
of course.
question? Bonifa, did you get a member or one of the person from Black Lives Matter to a seat that got elected during this general election? Did I read that?
Yes, absolutely. So Cori Bush, who is a Black Lives Matter activist out of St. Louis, she unseated an
incredible story. Incredible story.
And she's a nurse. She's a first responder. She's a mother, of course, a Black woman. And she just yesterday put out an amazing speech, which was a love letter to Black people saying that I'm going to Congress because I love you, and I see you. And so Cori Bush is one of those folks who will join the squad, whatever it's growing, it's becoming more powerful. And we love our members of the Congressional Black Caucus, but we're also going to push them and lean in for them to not do what Clyburn is saying, which is to run to the middle.
Push everything to the left, baby. That's right.
We got to flank. We have to flank Ayanna Pressley. We have to flank Cori Bush. We're going to have to flank Jamal Bowman so that our folks get out of this victory what they deserve.
Now, one of the things that's constantly brought up, and is that there's even many of the congressmen in the Congressional Black Caucus, they represent mixed districts. And there is, whether it's Kamala Harris and what she said when she was running, she's like, I work for healthcare that's not necessarily for Black people, but it helps Black people. And there's almost a fear to actually say that this policy will help Black people. Do you think that that's a real? Do you think that would actually hurt people from getting elected in a lot of these districts, right? Because there are in order to get things passed, you need a lot of these other congressmen to win in these middle of the road swing districts. Does what you're saying take into account the need to win those swing districts in order to be able to have a majority to get stuff done?
Absolutely. I don't think it does. When you look at who took to the street this summer, it wasn't just Black people, right? Some of the most massive defund the police demonstrations we saw were in Portland, Oregon. You know, it's almost as white as it can get, right? So these are issues that, yes, center Black people, center Black leadership, but we are also flanked by accomplices. You know, there are also white folks, there are also people from other ethnic communities that know that this is good for their entire city, right? If Black folks are fighting for more mental health beds, that's going to help everybody in the city. If we're fighting to protect healthcare or to make sure that there's affordable housing and less money bail, that's gonna impact everyone. And so they just need to find a way to talk about these issues that bring people along and not be like the right and speak to their base in ways that don't push them, that don't advance them. You know, real leaders help to bring their people along, right? Anyone can get up there and play into people's worst fears. What'll happen if we have less police, right? But true leadership will be rigorous and have the conversations that help people imagine a new way, a new system, a new strategy, and help them have confidence in themselves to build that. And so I think that that's just, I don't know, I think it's lazy, actually, this idea to run to the middle. Where do we get that?
I'm sorry. Was the term, the phrase defund the police, do you think that was good? And then do you think that it came across, or was it purposely supposed to be put out there so you could have people be like, what? And then engage the conversation? And then is that what the plan was?
That's exactly the plan, you know, and we learn from Black Lives Matter, right? 6 years ago, Black Lives Matter, people was like, that is the worst saying ever. All lives matter. I mean, I'm not talking about white people. We're not talking about Karens, right? Black people were like, that's not going to fly. It's bad messaging. It's going to hurt us. And now what did we see this summer, right? Every mayor in every town, you know, a lot of it was performative, but, you know, Black Lives Matter is everywhere. So we believe that you have to push people, you have to lean into some uncomfortable conversations in order to have progress. And so, yes, defund the police is meant to be startling, right? And it's meant to make you really say, okay, maybe I've watched a whole lot of Law and Order and The Wire and Hill Street Blues. And, you know, maybe it's going to force me to really think about what safety is. And I want to end by saying this. We did the groundwork, though. It wasn't just like people flooded signs in cities across America and people held them up. You know, folks on the ground were having workshops with our folks saying, close your eyes. Think about those moments in your life when you felt safe. Were there police there? Were you in a precinct? Were you in a jail? You know, it's like, no. And then you go around and you say, well, when did you feel safe? I felt safe that time I lived with my grandma and our housing was secure and we have food every day. You know, I felt safe. And we took that down. And those are the components of Invest Divest. Those are the components of the Breathe Act. Our people actually know what keeps them safe and what makes their community safe, but they aren't given the space to imagine that because we're constantly fed the propaganda that is police.
I want to bring Pamela back in, and the question is on that, like, because there's a question asked on how do we build coalitions, and how do we look at situations like you have in Arizona, where you had a significant Latino population that, you know, that was part of larger coalitions. You had that in Arizona as well. You also had Miami, which, you know, different Latino populations thought differently. Is there an issue when you're dealing with immigration, when you're dealing with coalition politics, that the word Latino is overused and that it means something different in every community? How do we go about, like, what does that mean with respect to coalitions? What do you find, especially in dealing with the immigration policy? Like one third of actual Mexican Americans voted for Trump. 1/3 of most populations in the United States, like demographic populations at least, voted for Donald Trump. What does that mean when you're looking at immigration policy from the perspective of building coalitions specifically with Latino communities, even though we know that immigration is a lot more than that?
Well, I've said it in this show before, but immigration is not only an issue that should impact Latinos. There's Black Latinx. There is Africans that are also being directly impacted at the southern border. So immigration really is an issue that covers many folks. So that's one of the challenges I think that's trailed after us year after year. Then when we talk about Latinx issues, sometimes we just talk about immigration when in fact our community cares about healthcare as well. We've been heavily impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. And I think something that is also really important to point out, which is part of your question, Jonathan, that Miami, what happens in Florida and what happens in Arizona are two vast different things. In Arizona, and when we look at Maricopa County, which Joe Biden is leading by, Maricopa County actually was organized for over a decade by youth, by coalitions, because of Sheriff Arpaio. I'm not an expert on this issue, but I want to make sure that we remember Sheriff Arpaio was actually detaining people and making them like prisoners of war and dehumanizing folks for years and years. He's run a re-election again and he lost, but he's lost because the people of Maricopa County and in Arizona really rose up, knew how to organize their own community, and because they have suffered these consequences again. In Florida, we're seeing the Latinx community really variously. There's Cuban Americans, there's Venezuelan Americans, and many of them just fell into the Trump trap of like this socialist propaganda. Some folks from South America come from countries that have gone through dictator after dictator, and when they're falling under propaganda, they're clearly gonna lean more Trump than Biden because they don't have the facts. In Florida, we're also seeing issues of disenfranchisement. So even folks that wanted to vote and vote more progressive or vote for the Democratic candidate lack some of those resources and some of the just local opportunities to really rise up. So in Florida, I think we're seeing a more complex Latinx community where it's harder to really organize in a coalition than we're seeing it in Arizona.
And what is your take on this, Dr. Kelly, in terms of, and one thing that I just also want to bring out is that when you're dealing with immigration and when you're dealing with even what it means to be Black, it may mean like African Americans who are descendants of American slavery or of American slavery, as in slavery within the United States, might not even be a thing 30 years from now or 20 years from now, because we have a lot of immigration within our community. We intermarry, and there are a lot of people who are not like, who are, you know, part African American and they're part African, part Nigerian, or part Ghanaian, or part Jamaican, right? Like, so the idea of even an African American Black identity is something that seems to be ever shifting and changing. What does that mean with respect to us going forward?
Well, let me come back to that first, but let me go back to something you mentioned earlier, and I want to be clear on this. Few things. One of the problems I think in this post-civil rights era, in terms of post-civil rights movement, in terms of post-1965, is this, that you had Black politicians practicing deracialized politics. And that's been a phenomenon since really the late 60s. And it's a challenge for us. Second, I think that we also need to keep in mind, when we say Black, when we put it in front of something, too often people think that that's limiting or being parochial. But when we really take a look back, when we take a step back and analyze it, Black people have always had a vision of democracy in America that was broader than anything that America intended. So when we look at how democracy, even the limited forms of democracy we have in this country, when we look at how it's expanded, you see Black people at the forefront of those discussions. So Black people have really been the progressive force in this country for moving the country to the left a little bit throughout its history. Third, when I talked about the convention movements earlier, one of the things I should have said and really intend to focus on is that we really have to marry the best from that convention era, which really goes back to the 19th century, to the best of the civil rights era. When we look at SNCC and CORE, when we look at organizing in the South, we don't do that anymore. So we shouldn't. So when we have these discussions and when we having these Black agendas, when we're creating, it shouldn't be top down. We need to really put in the work that people did with SNCC and CORE, that they did in the South, going door to door in poor communities, really grounding with people, as Walter Rodney would say, grounding with my brothers, and we would add sisters.
That's right. That's
Grounding
right.
with people and organizing with people, and not looking at it like that we're telling them what to do or showing them what to do. You know, the great thing about Ella Baker was that she said, you know, everybody had the capability to be a leader, and that really what a leader does is just give the platform for people to ability
Lead themselves.
and so that's the thing that we really need to do. So, you know, one of the things that I've really been beating my head up against and trying to get done is trying to get a model Gary convention in the public schools, and for our young children, our young people, to grapple with these ideas and to come up with solutions, and college students. Because I think that that's really where the rubber meets the road, where we get young students grappling with these issues and knowing that to be educated really is to not only identify problems, but to be able to solve problems. And we do that by working in groups. We do that by working across the aisle with other people from other ethnicities and other groups, because that's just, for me, that's the reality. We have to be able to get that done. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
Well, you answered most.
Let me.
But
Can I get in
but
here?
we also had there's also a grassroots component to our movement for
Right.
Black Lives convention. I don't want to give the impression that there's top down there. I mean, you know, even just now in Georgia, New Georgia Project, you know, not a million doors, but that's because they've been organizing in those communities, having conversations. You know, when we built the Vision for Black Lives, which is that policy platform I talked about, you know, it's not top down. It's kitchen meetings, it's coalition meetings on a local level. And it is years of organizing that got us to the point where we were going to have an in-person convention, but had it digitally, but there were breakout rooms. You know, every state had its own Zoom. And so we tried to translate the components of that type of convention that you're talking about onto a virtual platform.
Can I get in if just for a second, Jonathan? Because I want everybody to appreciate too that this is Newark, New Jersey, right? We've got some rich antecedents in that history right here in this community, right? And there's some rumblings, very healthy rumblings. In fact, the mayor finally put a statement out that the time has come for another convention of a Gary style convention that he's willing to host right here in the city of Newark once again, in honor of his father's contribution to that work, in honor of him understanding that character of the kind of organizing that we have to do, right? The whole convention movement is a rich part of our organizing legacy, and it should be it should be fundamental in the training and making of organizers out of our young people. So I want us to, because it's right in our hands, and the time to do that is now.
And one of the things I wanted to say and bring Monifa into this, and for that caveat, one of the things you just said is that Movement for Black Lives is doing what Gary did. They had people from Gary started off. Often, I think that we reinvent the wheel, and we don't know a lot of what's going on. And there are a lot of people who are well-meaning. Like Ice Cube was like, I got a contract with Black America, and did that top down. You have Bobby going, hey, I need to do it, part-time. But there are people who do this every day. And one of the things is Movement for Black Lives is different from Black Lives Matter. Movement, right? Like Movement for Black Lives is a coalition of a lot of different organizations that is bottom up. Could you explain like the connection between Movement for Black Lives and what Dr. Kelly was talking about, and what Zaid is talking about with Gary and those need for that?
Yeah, and I also wanted to point out that it's intergenerational. So, we have like NARC and IBW are like members of the Movement for Black Lives. We actually have organizations who have leaders that were instrumental to the convention in Gary, a part of our ecosystem in Movement for Black Lives. And so Black Lives Matter is an organization, and they are one of the 150 organizations that make up M4BL. My organization, the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, it's not an organization that started 6 years ago, but we're a member of the Movement for Black Lives. And so we bring in our history and our knowledge and our experiences into the ecosystem. And then we struggle. We have ideological struggle. We build on what we come together on. We push that out. We get more feedback. And there's a loop. And we are constantly organizing. We're constantly meeting. And that is how you get 25 million people in the streets. It was a conscious effort to have a distributed march. There was a whole thing. Like, do you have one big march in DC for Juneteenth, or do you put people in the ground in all 50 states? And the decision was that that's bigger, and that has a bigger impact on the ground, because then those local organizers own the agenda once they demonstrate that physical presence in the street. And so, I think it's a situation where, because our leadership is very dispersed, there's not these like big head, dare I say, Black male leadership in M4BL. It can kind of seem, it feels invisible, I think, to people, the infrastructure, but it's intentional because we actually want to grow power on the ground.
And also it stops from what happened.
All power to the people, baby.
Right. And I think it also, the added caveat, the added benefit of that is that, like, when there's particular leadership, and I know a lot of people talked about, particular civil rights group, there's Black male leadership, but we ended up getting killed and jailed, right? Like, we ended up getting attacked. Those were targets of attack. And
betrayed.
Right. So it was either, but you were targeted, right? For either betrayal, for death, for jail. And there's a litany of people, right? We just go through the quote Black male leaders, and they're either dead or they might have a show on MSNBC, right? Like, so there are lots of different ways in which, like, that model probably is a dangerous one.
Or they're in prison. I mean,
right.
Part of the convention in August was Black August, and we uplifted some of our freedom fighters who've been in prison for decades, and this was on the heels of us making a big push around people like Jalil Monteking, who we finally got freed just last month in October. But, part of it was the groundswell and the organizing we were able to do through Movement for Black Lives.
So real quick, Monique, I'm sorry, Dr. This is real quick. Just I got to shout it out.
Raise something that's, I'm sorry, to raise something that's important that I don't want to get overlooked, because that wasn't trivial, right? Movement for Black Lives also just came out strongly. There's an effort to try and re-imprison Jalil, right? He was set up by his parole officer or someone like that in social services. Simply filled out of all the forms that were put out in front of him so he could get on his feet the way someone who hasn't received any social services in 50 years, right? Just complying, he accidentally fills out a voter registration form, right? Without having established 30-day residence where he's at in New York. And they pull that and are charging him with, guess what? Voter fraud. Right? Now, he ain't stole nobody's ballots, right? He ain't bringing no rifles to the polls.
He didn't even vote.
None of that. No, right. But he runs the risk of being put back into prison after 49 years. And one of the first groups out of that generation that stepped forward was Movement for Black Lives. And I wanted to shout them out for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you for that, Brother Zay, because I know Ed is getting ready to come on our heels. But to Monifa, real quick, last night on the panel of IBW that they had, the election panel, one of the things that came out was the freedom schools. And we always talk about, we need to do this. I know here in New Jersey, once the momentum started building up, we thought this was a time to put forth freedom schools and to move forth with the Amistad legislation and making sure it's in every school. Is that, and I got the Breathe Act, but is that something that you guys have been talking about freedom schools and making sure that if it doesn't happen in the schools, we're going to go to the church, the empty building or something?
I ran a freedom school for 12 years.
Yes. What's interesting is that many of the leaders now are products of African free schools from the 70s. So I went to a school in Brooklyn, New York in the 70s called
Yes, you did.
Wayuse Shule. Lumumba went to Uhuru-Sasa. Salah, I'm naming people in our chapter of Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, went to Mapinduzi Shule. So we know the importance of them But I think we know it more now as adults because we don't have those institutions for our children. Like, you don't really realize the impact of those types of places until they're not there. So absolutely, there's an amazing effort coming up in Atlanta, actually, Donna, but it needs to be replicated all over.
Going into, I know we're approaching the end, and I started this conversation. I put this out before, but I just want just some thoughts on it because I know that coalitions become important, and I know that going forward, like the issue of, well, what does it even mean to be Black is going to be a thing, right? Like when you're dealing, like Pamela, when you were talking about dealing with immigration, a lot of the people who are targeted are Black immigrants, right? From either from Nigeria or from Haiti, right? And so
Cameroon,
right. But also at the same time, we realize that like when we're doing things like programs and admissions to schools, we deal in education. You have a lot of people who are African Americans, like descendants of the American slave trade, who get ignored, right? Like there are schools that are in cities that have lots of African Americans in them. But like if you look at a lot of the elite programs, they're not there, but people don't necessarily notice because they have lots of African immigrants, right? Like, so there's this tension, but there's also this Blackness. There's a thing of understanding what it means now and going forward. Has there been thought, and this is actually for all of you, has there been thought to what does coalition politics mean to Blackness moving forward, and how do we prevent like issues, like how do we prevent the ways in which anti-Blackness works within communities? That whether it's within Latino communities who like 1/3 would vote for Trump, or and this is true of most communities, with the very exception of African American ones who like reject that type of politics altogether. How do we go forward in our new world and still understand and address anti-Blackness in all the ways that it works? If we could start with Pam and then go with Tim Monifa and then Dr. Kelly.
Thanks, Jonathan. I can speak on the anti-Blackness piece. I think this summer when Movement for Black Lives, in the uprising really, what I saw many of my friends and colleagues do when it came to talking about this was really just sitting down on Zoom Hangout like I did with my family and explaining the bottom of how things were, explaining defunding the police, explaining how it wasn't just Black people are being targeted, but people of color, brown folks, indigenous folks were also targets, and why we needed to stand up in solidarity, but also show up. I think when it comes to anti-Blackness is really talking about like Florida. There are many organizations, as an example, that are going to go back to Florida and are going to regroup their coalitions and really talk about what happened. Because many of them have been doing this for years as well. So I think when it comes to this subject, it's also, I think, for the Latinx community, breaking it down internally and externally that we're not a monolith. Like we are all very different from one another, from the countries that we come from the cultures and the religions that we practice, and really trying to elevate those voices and without overriding their leadership, but also without overstepping in some of the progress that has done. I think Congressman Payne alluded a little bit about this when he was on before us. He was making a call toward the Latinos to not, forget African and Black neighbors in Newark, because sometimes I think we've been brainwashed that when we achieve the American dream of when we own a house, we act more white or try to pass. And that is something the younger folks in my generation, like the parents of my generation, are realizing that it's deeply rooted in racism and how we need to break that down. And that is, I think culturally, some of the steps that we are taking when it comes to anti-Blackness in order to really collaborate for the greater coalition.
And Monifa.
Yeah, one of our esteemed scholars that are in our core leadership in Movement for Black Lives is Dr. Barbara Ransby, and she did a piece for us early in January on racial capitalism. And, really talked about how, in school they teach you America is an experiment in democracy, but it's really an experiment of racial capitalism, right? And so it continues to promote out to the masses of people this idea of scarcity. So whenever you go for a demand or to advance your community, there's this idea that there's not enough to go around, right? That if we get ours, somebody has to not get theirs, And so that dynamic, that operating from a place of scarcity creates these dynamics where communities, one, that all are Black, right? So when we talk about Black people who are descendants of slaves in the United States or from the Caribbean or come from Africa, there's this idea that you have to get above this group because there's just not enough to go around, right? And that capitalism makes that so, right? And so when we step back and we talk about the Breathe Act, we want to disrupt that and say, one, yes, there is enough to go around. And two, it's not because another community is getting, like I think you named, Jonathan, like the seats in the special program in the school. It's that the school is not getting the resources that it should get because that's all going to the police precinct. Like really pulling people out of this idea that we should fight for these crumbs, calling them crumbs, and really uniting of reimagining what our communities look like, what our society is going to look like. And so that's really like the short of it. And then I just want to name really quickly before we go to Dr. Kelly that, Latino communities are huge in places like Philly and places like Milwaukee, and so that kind of like monolithic talk about what happened this week in the election, I think is very disruptive then also to how we coalition build, right? Because we start talking about people, what they did, what they didn't do, how they showed up, how they didn't show up. And a lot of that I think is also designed to disrupt our coalition building.
Can you break that down just briefly? Because I know that we're running out of time, but just a clarification of the last thing you said.
Yeah, so there are lots of Puerto Ricans in Philadelphia. I was thinking, right? If you've ever been to North Philly. And so Black people absolutely are in the process of, saving this election. But there are also huge pockets of Latino communities, whether they are, from the Caribbean, Afro-Latino, there's all kinds of ways. Pamela was explaining some of the different dynamics. But what I was saying is that we should back away from saying, Latinos or Hispanics did this or didn't do that in this current election. That is also disruptive to our coalition building because that's not true across the board, even if we compare Arizona to Florida, right? But I was just also throwing in the mix, Milwaukee and Philadelphia, where you had Latinos, Latinx communities played a huge role in carrying us through to the moment we are right now, alongside Black communities.
Right.
Did that make sense?
It does. And one of the things I realized I'm going to have. Right. And one of the things I know that we're definitely going to have to do is have all of you back on just to have like this, because I love these conversations. I think they're really important for the actions that we take moving forward. And besides which, I'm a huge fan of Movement for Black Lives and love the stuff you do. Shout out to Brianna Aaron, one of my debaters who did incredibly well a couple of years ago, who actually introduced me to the organization through the website. And Dr. Kelly.
Thank you. And as a native Philadelphian, I can concur with Sister Monifa what she just said about Philadelphia. But let me also add and clear that my earlier comments was not a shot at Monifa or Movement for Black Lives. It's more of a reflection of work that I've done over the years since I've been a teenager, places I've been, and noticing certain things that is the most at-risk areas. A lot of times we're not at. In terms of working with activists. I have a friend that's doing 20 years in prison. And one of my friends is doing 20 years, another's doing life. But they don't know about any of this stuff unless I share it with them. and a lot of brothers who are incarcerated, a lot of brothers on the streets and sisters in certain communities that are at risk. That's where the work needs to be done. But at any rate, when we get to this coalition building, I think one of the key things that we have to understand is that, people are miseducated about different groups, particularly about people of African descent in this country. When we're dealing with
in our radical tradition.
That's thank you. You said it perfectly, and our radical tradition. So I think that we really have to do a lot of educating, and that's not just about our history, but understanding other people's history and unique histories, and even understanding
about what brings
Cuban Americans in Florida would be different.
Per se.
Those contradictions. Hello?
Hello. We can hear you. You came out for just a second, but then you came back in again.
Okay.
I think Kamala Harris called you, Dr. Harris. What happened? Did Kamala call you, sir?
It did sound like it. I thought I was hearing her. I thought I'd heard her.
No, not at all, not at all. But at any rate, so I think it's very important that the education piece is always ongoing, that we're learning about each other from different communities, and not learning in a way that we see people as a monolith. Even understanding, so we'd understand the contradictions of the Cuban Americans and what they represent in Florida, and why that would come out so different, and how that's so unique. I do a lot of times when I'm talking to my students about Cuba, I always talk about African Americans in Cuba and why we look at it differently. And it's very interesting because while we on this call know about that history, when we're looking at kids, people in teens in their 20s, and some people I would even imagine in their 30s, they really don't know the history.
I grew up with Gusanos. It was a trip.
They don't know the history. And so I think it's very important to share that history so we can have more nuanced understandings of people, places, events, and issues.
Thank you so much. And I know we are way over time. And I know thank you for all coming out tonight and adding to this conversation. Again, we're going to have each of you back on this. There is a question, though, that I believe I have not asked. Right.
Monifa, get ready. Get ready,
Get ready.
Pamela's been like a co-host, has been here before. Dr. Harris has been here before. They've asked this question a lot lot of times.
This is Monifa's first time.
But so we got to ask Monifa first.
So we will have to ask first.
It's a piece of vegan cake. Don't even worry about
it. This is All Politics of Local, America's #1 hip hop political radio talk show, and we ask all of our guests at the end, who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group? And when we ask the two guests who've been on here before, you could tell us who your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group was, or you could tell us who you're rocking right now. But who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group?
Oh, I'm first because I haven't done it before.
Yes, absolutely.
We just had a reunion of our Black August Hip Hop Project, and it was amazing. And this group, Dead Prez, who supported us throughout the 2000s, M1 was back again, always there when we need them. And it's just something that is fire about that album, which is its 20th anniversary now.
Dead Prez, yes.
Yeah. But I want to say that also the show exposed.
Oh, wait. Hold on.
August.
My apology. You were taken out by technical error, probably on my part. Can you repeat like the last 20 seconds of what you said? I got Dead Prez, and then from Dead Prez, I did not.
What was new to our show was a new artist who was fire named Rhapsody. Y'all got to check her out. She opened it up. She set the stage, and then it was just burning all the way to the end.
Yeah, even like my favorite album in the past 5 years.
Yeah, and Rhapsody just did an interview with Nikki Giovanni, so that's just gotta be. Whew.
Yeah.
Black August is a hip hop project between hip hop in the United States and hip hop in Cuba. So y'all clear about where that's coming from.
Wow. Okay.
Pamela.
I think we're all thinking about Georgia, so I've been doing some Outcasts today, especially.
All right, definitely. And how about you, Dr. Kelly?
Okay, I'm Paris. Gorilla Funk, Gorillas in the Mist. People sleep on Paris and forget about Paris, but Paris has
He
been
was rough. He was rough little brother.
and still is. Look him up. He's still putting stuff out. Paris is committed and true to it, you know. So there's a lot of people out there faking the funk like Ice Cube. But anyway, it's a lot of people. Paris has really been out there for real doing it, and he's continuing to do it. So Paris.
I'm going to try and get us Siri X from IBW too to get on here sometime to be in these talks because he would kill it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Zaid. Donna, do you want to have anything to add as we go out?
Two things. I want to appreciate Monifa. I literally watched her grow up in this work, and she means the world to me, and I'm supremely proud of her. And she's represent the breadth of the kind of work that we all need to do in our growth, and so I'm supremely proud of her, and I'll always have her back. Second, I want to shout out an ancestor. Yesterday was the anniversary of the passing of a great teacher from Rutgers University, Newark, and that was the late great Clement Alexander Price. And I actually performed my memorial praise song for him in a film that is coming out about Newark ancestors that we need to appreciate from the last generation.
Nice.
And the only thing I would say, I'm just clutching my pearls and I have my Converses on and I'm ready to just get out and just say, and I just want to say again that, you know, I know what you see in the front, but for me is what you don't see. And I know that the work is being done. So shout out to Stacey Abrams, because I know that girl took that plan, remixed it, went into Georgia and just did her thing. And again, you know, my mentor is a Q. And I know just to see the work, to see the manifestation of the work. So the Divine Nine, what they didn't say, but what they were doing. And we might have got a snippet with a stroll to the pole or something like that. So just shout out for that work being done. And then for Monifa and Pamela, just thank you, because coalition building is something that's very, very, very important. And I encourage you to do it, include, and just and even the freedom schools. I know we have a brother right here in South Orange that's just doing this thing, but if that's something that we can tack on and do it the same way you did, this is the plan, print it down and go do it. That's all. And let's get it done. And just welcoming the new president soon. Thank you.
Can I say one last thing?
Sure.
Y'all didn't let Chris go for his work with Trump, did y'all?
No. I mean, like, no. I mean, come on, man. Like, he tried to do the right thing. He just didn't know how. He should have been talking to Monifa, and had he just consulted with a lot of people who are already doing the work.
Seriously. I'm getting Chris back for messing with me before.
Yeah, y'all it's just sort of woo.
Who's Chris?
Chris Randall.
Oh, that's the young hip hop voice in this circle.
Right.
He's the Cub too, Monifa. He's the Cub.
And you know why he's playing? Chris Randall is on the line. We see you, Chris. And Chris just said, "Good show tonight. We love you, baby.
We love you, man. We love you, man." I teased him about working with the Republican in Baltimore, but that was just a joke. And
let me just say that the sister with the red bottom shoes walking through Baltimore and all that other people.
That's not him. That's not. I just want to make it clear. I was teasing him on Facebook.
It had nothing to do. But I just want to say that all of those people that aligned, and she was the most, because she was red bottoms walking through Baltimore talking about Trump and why he needs to be. None of them got elected. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Yep. Yes, and just in case people got it twisted, I tease Chris Randall. Chris Randall teases me a lot. And that whole thing about, like, you know,
these is the black
wow. That's not true. It's not true. That's fake news. I just want to say that was fake news.
And just say I have to be his spokesman because he's not here. He said they're all lies. They're lies. Hell no, they're all lies.
Absolutely. Yep. So thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify for him so that he knows that, you know, like, his name won't get run through the streets, right? Like, so yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you so much for coming on and for being on the show. We're definitely we want to have all of you back on the show for more in-depth conversations on this. Part 2 and 3 and 4, right? And individual one-on-one conversations.
We got work
we do on Tuesday. There's a lot of stuff that you're doing that all three of you are doing that I think are very valuable and that I think many people within the community would benefit from knowing, right? Because, like, most people don't even know. A lot of people who should know what Movement for Black Lives is, don't know. A lot of people who should know how to do basic advocacy work like Forward does and what that takes, and that you have to talk to both sides. I know you lobby Republicans and Democrats on a regular basis, have conversations with them. A lot of people don't know what that is. And with Dr. Kelly, a lot of people just don't know the history, right? And so that's what leads to that. So we definitely have to have back all of you on again. And thank you so much.
And Jonathan, I'm sorry, Dr. Kelly, Chris said you mad because you just love Dr. Carson. See, stop.
Wow. So you had to, of course, you had to instigate that.
We got to get Biden off of Cuba, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe.
I wasn't joking about Chris. I was serious.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. But we will end that here. And thank you so much for being guests and for educating me and our guests. So thank you, and we'll see you later.
Session.